And by popular demand, we will indeed cover the complete shit show that will be Candela Obscura, an RPG so good that it doesn't even have possession mechanics and combat, and your whole thing is investigating spectral anomalies, demonic possession, and the paranormal. Hello there, the name's Adam.
And I'm Insit, and we're reviewing something very timely this time round.
I also noticed already that instantly the Critical Role crowd showed up and immediately fucked off when we said something wasn't very good. Or maybe the internet's exploding. I don't know. There's supposed to be a weather storm.
This is Candela Obscura. It's Critical Role's first game that they're
It's based on like one of their not Pathfinder, their 5th edition settings they did for a bit, I think.
uh, I mean, makes sense to at least capitalize on their audience.
Well,
They like
yeah,
watching this, and they're trying to essentially, I'd say, port that experience over into a game, and it just doesn't work.
no, it's like the basic concept's fine. I love paranormal investigative stories. I love Call of Cthulhu, and I also really love the World of Darkness. There's a reason why one of my favorite Chronicle splat is Hunter the Vigil, and that's why I also really like Call of Cthulhu. Hell, I just played a one shot a while back. But what happened is they didn't think it through fully, which is fair. They're story driven, but the problem is when you're dealing with a system, you do have to have things that cover for combat. Mouse Guard tried that. They focused more on speeches and diplomacy and issues like that, and kind of tried to turn that into a combat system. This one doesn't even go that far. But let's stop John. I think you guys want to actually see what the final product looks like. Oh, and also, if you're wondering, the reason Critical Role's been doing this is it has a lot to do with the open gaming license and Wizards of the Coast essentially trying to take all of the money, which didn't go well in their favor, let's just say. They're now facing more and more alternative competitions. This isn't one of them. This is more of its own thing. But there's a couple of other ones, like there's, oh God, what's the name of it? I think Cobalt Press has one,
MCDM,
and then there's MCDM, I think.
yeah.
Those have potential to topple what will eventually be 60, especially since it's looking like they're going hard on digitalization.
And I don't have to worry about that. I'm spending all my money on Warhammer.
Honestly, you'd probably do better. They would have actually, honestly, it would have been smarter for them to blow all of their research money on building virtual tabletop system wizards on just getting like 100 Warhammer 40k Titans. It would have been a better use of their money. Okay, what could possibly go wrong? Well, I will say that the initial cover does a good job at being understated. I actually do like the decision to go kind of grimoire already,
Yeah, it's got this, like, you can see these symbols around this. I think
which
it's
are
supposed to be an astrolabe.
quasi-alchemical. Yeah, quasi-alchemical, possibly based on planetary configurations, possibly based on elemental. I actually think it's both since I'm recognizing a couple of them. They also mention it's the property of a light keeper of a character that I have no bloody clue who they are. And it's a pretty big team. They even have a lot of playtesters, which, in my opinion, makes this a bit more damning.
They also surprisingly have a military and political consultant. I did look the guy up, and it's it is a guy who did work in the army, the U.S. Army,
which could be
but I have no
useful.
idea.
Which could be useful
Yeah,
if you need to understand the life of, say, the veterans, because isn't this supposed to take place after an alternative Great War?
you're right. Uh, but just the I don't know. You always see cultural consultant. I never see military and political consultant. It's
Well, I
just
mean, the last time I saw military consultants getting used heavily was Spielberg actually was well known to use them. He actually recruited them extensively for Saving Private Ryan. And actually, funnily enough, what was it? Activision used to do that too, back when they actually gave a shit, sort of, because they would actually hire them for Medal of Honor, and then Call of Duty did the same thing. Basically, get experts to kind of allow you to either get stories or how things were, uh, interesting little information bits. And also, they would do things like actually fire era equipment. Although that was more just because you needed to get the sounds. Also, it's just
Yeah.
fun. You get to fire a 45 caliber submachine gun.
We do want to warn you, though, the document within contains depictions of abuse of power, body horror, death, gore, and other sensitive topics.
Well, yeah, I could tell you that. You're literally dealing with paranormal activities. Do they actually have the warning before the horrifying eldritch abomination that I
Yes, they
just
do.
scrolled past? Good. Good. At least there's. Oh wait, no, I don't think they do.
No, it was literally on the first title page where they
I
list all the credits.
I probably missed it because it's kind of. Oh yeah, it's like right at the bottom, minimal disclaimer. It is quite easily skippable, which I think is kind of
I,
funny.
let's say I do like this art as well. Like this, they're trying to do like a
That's a
gas lamp.
watercolor. No, this is
Yeah,
watercolor, which is fitting. Watercolor on charcoal. I think the problem is if this is supposed to be a grimoire, you would be using illuminated pages on parchment, which is a bit different.
I mean, it's more so in just like, okay, what would the characters look like? What would they be encountering? What does the world look like?
And it's a little bit Tim Burton-y from what I can tell, just from the slight gothic elements, the over-exaggeration of architectural drift. I do like the take on the Spectre. It's just a little bit off-putting and chaotic and horrifying. It's pretty well done.
As they say in the introduction, we're entering a gilded world of terrifying magic with a K.
Oh, good. That means we're dealing with Aleister Crowley's style chaos magic. Expect some eight-folded stars and a bunch of weird esoteric shit. A little bit of Satanism too, maybe.
Uh,
Either that or Wicca. It's one or the other.
so, Candela Obscura is the name of a paranormal secret society charged with protecting the world from deadly magical phenomenon. Uh, and they somewhat understand that there's another world or another realm, but they don't know what goes on in there. You're a member of the organization. You're in the Fairlands,
I'm not a
or
fan
the
of the intentional
Fairylands.
Old English that they're kind of trying to do there. It's a little,
Uh,
it's a little much. It's a little pretentious.
and you are in the stunningly named town of New Fair,
I mean,
which
it's
is built on the
at
ruins
least
of
it's
an
not
old fallen
Slough.
civilization.
At least it's not Slough. Let's be fair. Or Scranton.
Uh,
Either or.
so
That's
that's
a fate worse than death.
so gameplay wise, you have your PCs, you have GM, you have uh, 9 6-sided dice, uh, and
That's interesting. Dice pool's limited up to 9, which that sounds about right.
so it basically you have here you have your drives and then your various actions. So you could have up to 3 dice, I believe, for an action, and then within your drive, you can take from that pool to add to it.
Yeah, I don't know
But
exactly what
that
page you're
pool,
kind of on because the rules are right around here on page 9 to like 11.
well, I was I
I,
had read earlier, so
that's kind of a
I was literally
problem.
looking
I
at
did
the
not because I wanted to see first time how these people came up with a system. I'm not
I was
I'm already not a fan of how what they've done is they start talking about the rules and then immediately there's a page break where it goes rules of the world, rules of magic, and the rules of Candela Obscura, which are all role playing rules. This is all information that you're supposed to know as a fucking character. Which, hey, don't get me wrong. World of Darkness and Chronicle of Darkness does that too. But I probably wouldn't have done this. I probably would have started with this and then shown off the rules rather than whatever the hell this is.
All right, so going
Oh,
on to
it's
the
even worse than that. They don't even talk about the rules here. They like show a little bit. Oh no, they do. Overview of gameplay though. It's like, I guess we have to stat out how this game works.
yeah.
We can't have it be purely theater of the mind.
So
Oh,
let's just start with the
that's some
rules of the
poor
world
wording.
then. So rules of the world, basically the average citizen does not know that much, nor believe in magic. There's a barrier between this realm and the beyond, known as the flare. It can weaken, which are referred to as thinnings, and myths are made out of magical phenomenon.
So what you're saying is they just basically stole the concept of the gauntlet from Chronicles of Darkness, which is actually itself based on the Umbra from the original World of Darkness, which is based on your standard hidden world from beyond, likely inspired by pulp writers from the 20th century. We're
Which,
we're
actually,
dealing with
considering
we're
the
dealing with
era,
multiplicity levels copy of a copy here.
considering the era makes appropriate. Basically, magic can be infused in things. However, it can corrupt people and things through what's called bleed. Uh, and then Candela Obscura are
Wait,
investigators
bleed.
of.
Wait, no. I think this like cribbed from another. There's like a bunch. There's like a gajillion horror series that are independent that are crawling around on the internet. I vaguely remember there's a quasi SCP Foundation that actually called the same effect the bleed.
Could be.
Maybe.
Actually, so Candela Obscura investigates this phenomenon and protects the world by securing. Oh my god, it is actually SCP. They secure, they contain, and they protect.
Well, no, it's not even that. I think they might have ripped off another series that came out before this RPG in their own their own campaign.
I mean,
I'd have to look. It's like
it's the same thing of a secret organization that is investigating unnatural phenomenon. They
which let's
do
be
how
fair, that's basically the RPD from Hellboy as well.
yeah.
And
You
I'm
have
not saying it's like completely derivative. It's just like you have to have something new when you do stuff like this.
well, they do have this. So they have a hierarchy of light keepers, and a small party sent out by light keepers to investigate a phenomenon, and
Well,
that
I
party is known
mean,
as a
for a
circle.
secret society in the turn of the century, they're at least nailing the pretentious and weird titles off the bat.
There are chapters, local enclaves of organizations, and they have access via thinning, their transdimensional vault known as the Fourth Pharos, which, as the name implies, is the fourth iteration of a lighthouse stronghold that holds a lot of artifacts.
Oh, their primary game designer apparently did a silent TTRPG, and it is very much in effect throughout this entire book. This would be the
Silence
equivalent.
RPG.
This would be basically the equivalent of trying to turn poker into a miniatures card game, into a miniatures game. Probably not the right conversion method. This would be like having a person who specializes in moody independent dramas making a gajillion dollar action movie. And the most they've
or
ever
a
worked with is $10 million.
or a serious political documentary being cast to direct a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Disney. Moving on. So the setting. So you're in the northern country of Hale, which
Okay,
lies in the Fairlands,
okay,
which just recovered from a 6-year war,
okay.
and then you're within New Fair, which is the
None of
main.
this means anything to me.
Uh, it is, and I quote, a blend of ancient and modern architecture that resembles the integration found in such cities as Edinburgh, Lima, New York, Paris, and Istanbul.
All of them with very different architectural designs, mainly because of the region that they were built in, which means their geography would be different.
And it is a mix of brutalism and Art Nouveau and Art Deco.
Historical brutalism? Not necessarily. This is all Western point of view for in terms of art, which is funny since actually the art that they're showing seems to be more based on a mixture of Gothic architecture with elements of Japanese pagodas, or actually the Watts of Southeast Asia.
That just made me realize of Japanese Gothic architecture.
There is a charm to it.
That would be something. Uh, Now, they've decided to immediately after that go on talk about the roles and specialities,
Okay, rolls.
meaning your character.
Okay, let's see.
Uh, there's I guess it's two classes based on type, so face, muscle, scholar, slink, and weird, which would be,
That feels a bit. I mean, I get it. It just kind of feels a bit odd when you list them exactly like that, since that's more colloquial rather than the official term.
it's basically charisma, strength, intelligence, dexterity, and occult, sort of.
Yeah, it's basically standard party roles that you have. Honestly, the more I read this, the more it kind of just reminds me of if you're setting up an investigative team in Call of Cthulhu, to be honest. But in the quasi Bloodborne setting or Dishonored, honestly, since they're kind of going
I
for that turn of the century, a little bit of From Soft nonsensory as well, just
actually,
a
as you
little
mentioned
bit,
that,
a dash.
on the next page, and as we pass the somewhat obligatory safety tools section, the touchstones of which they use as saying, "What can you use as inspiration?" In video games, they include Bioshock, Bloodborne, and Elden Ring.
Yay! I also saw
They
Hellboy.
don't
I see you. I see you, Hellboy.
Hellboy. Int- they don't reference Lovecraft. Instead, they reference the Ballad of Black Tom, which is about one of Lovecraft's more racist works.
Hilarious, given that I mean, even if you don't want to cover Lovecraft, you could have done Robert Bloch. Of Shambler from the Stars fame,
They reference, and they also reference Lovecraft Country, uh,
which is a terrible TV
Constantine.
show, by the way. That I don't think it made. I think if I recall correctly, it did so poorly it only had its run and was done.
They- They'd also like to tip their hats to Evil Hat Productions,
Oh,
who you may
that's
remember
Scam
as
Company.
the designers of Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
Yeah, that's Scam Company.
We're
A
already
little
5 pages
more,
in.
a little more of that kind of pagoda style, which it adds a nice touch. Again, the art visuals are pretty good. The quasi use of watercolors, that is one of my weak points. I very much love watercolors. I will say this is somewhat amateur. I'm not a massive artist, but I can tell you that the line work, especially for the lily pads and in terms of the foliage, way too fucking thick. Which adds the amateurish nature. It feels like someone going on field expedition, but at this point it would be more like a scribble like the dog monster peeling from the obelisk.
Well, now they finally bring up the system for the game.
Oh,
Uh,
oh good. That's not a big deal. Like they brought it up early. That's fine. That's actually where you
so
probably should.
it is a fiction-first RPG, meaning the narrative drives the action rather than the reverse.
So,
Uh,
Chronicles and World of Darkness. Fine. That's perfectly fine.
the reference utilizing the practice of yes-anding, which I believe isn't that an improv thing?
Oh, that's not good. That's basically giving the players carte blanche to basically hijack your setting and just be an asshole.
The rules, lore, and mechanics in this book are meant to work for you. Anything here may be adapted, modified, or omitted based on your table's needs and desires.
Well, I mean, that's
Within
why
the
they
text,
scripted all of their campaigns after the initial one.
you may choose to customize the world, the society, or anything you see fit, which is also known as the excuse for. not doing anything else.
Yeah, there's also the excuse of, well, fuck it, I just want this here because, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. It really depends on how little or how much you think of the thing.
Uh, okay, now we get into the drives and actions.
Okay, the core elements of how to actually play the game.
So each action has a rating between 0 and 3, representing the number of dice you will need. Each drive has between 0 and 9. You can spend any of your available character creation points to add a die when rolling with an action with that drive. However, your drives have a maximum, and uh, you every time you use it, it'll decrease. So from what I'm gathering,
That's basically willpower.
it's willpower, but because you are limited in, because you can only have maximum 3 dice, and this if this is on a d6, obviously more dice the better. So you'll be using up your dice over time, meaning that's sort of, I guess, your resource pool.
You can't, also, when your drive is empty, you can't spend any more points until you refresh that drive. Okay, fair enough. That feels weird though, because your average dice pool, unless you push it with drive, is only gonna be anywhere between 1 to 3.
I think that's the point, is you're supposed to use up you are supposed to spend your drive, and so that means later on, if as you, I guess, let's say if you were doing a dungeon crawl, as you
Oh,
get
oh
further and further,
please.
you get weaker and weaker.
Oh please, they wouldn't do that on they wouldn't do that on their streams.
Uh, and the ability or the actions we have is move, strike, control,
Oh no,
sway,
there's also
lead.
gilded, which they're denoted by filled in diamonds. Using this action can help you earn back drive points, and it narratively represents a skill that reinvigorates your character. When you're rolling with
So
a
it's
gilded
your,
action, you replace one of your standard dice with a gilded die, a d6 of a different color. If after you make the roll you choose the result of the gilded die, you can refresh a point in the drive that encompasses that action. Uh, okay. What's the point then? Why shouldn't you always choose the gilded result? Exactly. You might roll a 6 on the standard die and a 4 on a gilded. Instead of taking the full success, you can take a mixed success. Oh, hell no. They're doing that. They're doing that powered by the apocalypse shit. Ah, hell no. Yes, but ugh, fuck that. Fuck that.
and the GM sets the stakes before a roll, so that shows the severity of whether to get a mixed success or a mix or a miss.
So what you're saying is you at all points will know exactly how bad things are when you fuck up. Okay.
Uh, Expectations. The GM should also ensure that the expectations of a roll align with the players. If the action is something they believe will only yield a limited result, this should be communicated to the player before a roll is made.
Well, yeah, you don't want to accidentally have them blow everything on a fit of stupidity. Because, God forbid you have them learn their lessons by doing. Huh? What do you mean my badass character got half his teeth punched out in a bar because he decided to pick a fight, and the bar owner happened to have been a former barbarian and punched his stupid fucking teeth in?
And they say that PC should have the opportunity to adjust their approach after receiving this information.
So what you're saying is it encourages metagaming on every level humanly possible.
Metagaming, I feel like from their perspective, it's supposed to be that they don't want the players to risk it all on something that's more pointless. But then again, if
Well, that's
that's the
what the
case, just
that's what the
make it so
GM
that they only
standard
roll
are
on
you
important actions.
Well, that's what the GM standard are you sure comes from. Because if whenever you hear are you sure about this, you know you're about to do something horrendously stupid. Or at least you should.
So that all encompasses making an action roll. So GM tells you what you need,
It
along with
also
these
tells you
stakes and
what'll
X.
happen to fail. Yeah, like, which I feel like kind of ruins the story when you do that a little bit.
Yeah, in a way.
I mean, if you play the rules as written here, you essentially are spoiling stuff that can happen before the thing happens.
And especially in a game that, I mean,
You're investigating, and that's the other thing. You're investigating, and since this is taking in the form of otherworldly horror, you can't really play mind games that well. Like, I'm not saying anything innocuous, but sometimes a failure just doesn't mean anything bad happens at all. Oh no,
or
you
anything
you
bad
didn't find
happens
this little
now.
thing. Yeah, it could be something as innocuous as, oh, you can't really find any books on this little bit of research you're doing. That doesn't mean that anything negative happens. It just may, at worst, might mean you're slightly less prepared. Sometimes it screws you a long time after. It really depends on how serious the role is.
So you, so doing an action, GM tells you what you need. You grab your dice pool. If the action is gilded, replace one of your dice with gilded dice. Spend one or more points from your drive. Uh, check if abilities apply to the situation, and roll the dice pool.
Oh, by the way,
On a one to
well, we'll get into how the dice pool works. Actually, I was just wondering about that.
So 1 to 3, failure. 4 to 5, mixed success. 6 is full success. Multiple sixes is a critical success.
So there's no critical failure. Fair enough. Critical failures often punish the players more than anything else.
I mean, considering the fail state is 1 through 3,
Yeah, they don't need that.
you just have a 50% chance of it not working, and only a 1 in 6 chance of an actual success.
So, okay, from what it looks like, you only need the result of one success. Like, you only take the one die. Okay. I was wondering about that.
Um, if you have an action rating of 0, uh, you will roll only 2 dice, take the lowest result.
What does
You're rolling
action
this way with
rating
a
mean?
uh, action rating, I guess, is more like how many dice you would need. So if you need to do what was it like strike, but you don't have any
Oh no,
chops in strike,
that's your skill. I think that's your equivalent of like your base talents. Okay.
yeah. And you cannot get critical successes with this,
All
which
right.
fair enough. However, you may always spend addition drive points. So, uh,
Which feels like a
it
weird case of balance tweaking that doesn't feel
doesn't feel
logical,
neat.
so to
Like
speak.
honestly, I would say if you had just roll the 2 dice. Um, if you're clearly not experienced in this, I'm thinking that your dice pool wouldn't, or your additional dice wouldn't help. It's also the fact that you can only have 6 dice in a single roll, which means because you can have up to 3 from your, I guess, your action,
And you
and
can
you
burn up to
heck up to
three.
9. Yep.
That feels silly, but given that you only need one success, I can kind of see why they did that. Like every result, they only need a six to succeed, or a five or four to succeed with issue.
Allies can
I
help
still
by
think that's on them though for being silly enough to make the same mistake as Powered by the Apocalypse did.
so you can add if you can help someone, add a dice to them. Uh, basically a lot of this narrative based stuff where
I'm just
they
seeing
describe.
players intentionally set rigging the board themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing a
Um,
lot of power gaming where they'll do is just like set up all of these circumstantial bonuses.
so the GM describes what your success would do, if it's a mixed success, if it's a miss. Um,
Which again is an issue I have with Powered by the Apocalypse, where it actually it's much more prone to failure than any form of success.
Oh, but they do also have another way to ensure you actually get the result you want. On page
Well,
13,
yeah,
they bring up
well, no, they have to rig it. They have to rig it for when they
oh,
do a stream of this.
resistances. For every 3 maximum drive points you have, you gain 1 point of resistance in that drive. Anytime you do not like the results of your roll, you may choose to burn 1 resistance point related to that action. Uh, After burning resistance, re-roll a number of dice equal to the rating of that action. So not only do you get additional dice, so actually this way, let's say you are stupid enough to burn 3 and all of them are ones. So you have 3 in your action, you burn 3 from your drive, they're all ones.
Yeah.
You can still re-roll it all.
Well, the resistance thing, apparently it's because during actual playtesting they never rolled. Oh, they almost never rolled less than 4. Well, yeah, they script it. They script the dice results, and basically they'll either keep rolling until they get the result and do a fancy edit to show it, or just lie.
Which also means they're not willing to risk failing.
Well, I mean, that's the point of Critical Role. It is the impersonation of an actual campaign. It was really only their first one that was genuine. Because it's a
And
lot
then
easier to script reactions like a reality TV show when you know what the outcome's going to be. Give or take 1 or 2 intentional dice just to play around with the scenario.
they bring up gear, of which they say
Wait, they have equipment? Oh my goodness.
Therefore, because it's a narrative game, therefore, gear is not intended to be mechanically complex. It is generally assumed that your character has the tools, equipment, and money to do what they need to do.
Oh, you don't know. How do these people not know about asshole gremlins who'll just intentionally lie about things they could totally have?
So I can bring up BFG 9000 to this game.
Wait, so you're saying that I can get Horace out here? Come on, let's get out Horace, and then you find out Horace is a Vickers machine gun, 50 caliber, air cooled, from the war.
I've got I've got the Dragon Balls with me.
I happen to have the exact thing needed to completely stuff your campaign. Whoops.
Actually, yeah,
Uh,
no. By the rules, it is generally assumed they have the equipment, the tools, equipment, and money to do what they need to do. So yes, if I can make the case, I need to have a genie with me, or something that can rewrite reality. I'll have it. But you know what? I'll have the fatal spell. That way, then it will kill this game, and I can move on.
like I said, I don't mind necessarily very narrative heavy sort of stuff. Like I said, if you're playing World or Chronicles of Darkness, if you're a big fan of Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, that's basically what this is trying to do. The problem is it's looking at those systems and going, "Oh, that's too hard," which I think is a little ridiculous.
Um,
We'll get into
and
we'll get
yeah,
into some massive limitations. It's gonna be funny as shit.
they don't say what the bonuses would be.
Of
They just
course
say
not.
like
You just get a
make it
bonus.
up. And now that they bring up what happens when you, by some means, fail.
Oh, by the way,
You get
before we
marked.
do, something as simple as you get to add a result of +1. It doesn't mean 6 goes over to 7, but you're more likely to get a success. That's all you would need to do to explain what gear does. Or alternatively,
And
you can spend gear to get a die for that scenario.
make it another resource.
Either or, it really depends. But the problem is, that's me adding errata and crunch to a game that refuses to give you that.
So here's your states of failure. You have marks for body, brain, and bleed. I find it odd then that
Well, they're
they
ripping off
use
Powered by the Apocalypse. They just filed off the dice system to make it their own.
yeah, but body, brain. I don't know. Maybe body, brain, soul. Might
Well,
be
no,
better because
remember they had to steal. They had to steal from that internet web horror series that called it The Bleed. So anyway, because you can have brain marks, that means you can literally insult someone until they die.
represents mental strain. Yeah, exhaustion from an intense conversation.
You can literally bully someone to death in this game, just like you can in Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Like attracts fucking like.
Um, so a
Or actually,
character
no,
can
it
have
was
up to
Extreme
three.
Meat Punks. You could bully people to death. In this one, in this one, you could just like blast Seabat on like a big brass band at 3 a.m. in the morning every night until their brain marks turns into a scar and they die.
So you have
Come
up to
on,
three
Imsa,
marks.
don't you like the idea of showing everyone the Morbius movie until the brain damage causes them to just give up and turn into a husk?
That's what Nyarlathotep was showing those people.
It's Morbin time.
So each character sustains three marks of each type. When you would take a fourth mark, you drop incapacitated and take the fourth mark as a scar. Some gear and abilities allow you to soak a mark. Uh, you can only heal your mark using Candela Obscura resources or by using specific abilities or gear. And a scar represents a permanent change to your character, both mechanically and narratively. So
Oh, this will be
it's three
interesting,
strikes, they're
especially
out.
since some of their scars are going to probably be nothing.
Example body scars. You're blinded.
Yeah?
You lost your arms, or you have a spine injury.
Don't worry, you can still be an active member even though you legitimately are blinded, missing a limb, and can't walk.
Actually, no, they do have. So blinded, for instance, it gives you a -1 to hide, but a +1 to strike
How?
because you are quick to lash out. Apparently,
You'd be less accurate.
uh, or like spinal injury, you have a back brace that causes slower movement, so they use charm in times of trouble.
More like
'Cause,
you fall over
'cause,
because you decided to.
person who no longer so the person who no longer has a spine, very persuasive.
I love the mental image of someone just like you see Bane breaking Batman's back. He just puts on a back brace and just tries to seduce Bane. Like you can visibly see his spinal cord ripped in half, and yet he's somehow still able to move.
Have we started the fire? Yes. The fire of passion rises.
Ah man,
Uh, brain, giving you insomnia and what's the phobia of enclosed spaces?
claustrophobia.
I completely forget that. And then
Also their
bleeds.
example scars. I like how they only have a few rather than giving. You don't need to list everything because honestly you can invent them. But this is like some Derek Deshaw fucking Chalt level I don't give a shit energy.
And and here's your bleed scars. Uh, shifting appearance. Your body is covered in mouths, and a ghost trap within body.
I mean, at least the
Again,
latter
all
two
giving a
are more
bonus.
of an issue. The first one's actually kind of useful if you're a spy.
Now we move away from talking about an RPG to bring up the serious concern of legacy of harm and horror.
Oh, by the way, Princess Cyanide, you are completely right. You can't punish people for screwing up, or in this case, the side effect of getting injured. So give them a bonus on all of them to offset that penalty.
They took the fact that when you're disabled, your other senses are more developed to heart, even though it's
Also, I
the
like how they couldn't remember to put the +1 to focus on body covered in mouths.
oh, they didn't have. Well, you see, they didn't have their bodies covered in mouth, so they weren't able to focus. But we have to be careful about the legacy of mechanizing how people experience harm and disability within the horror genre. Um,
it's not anywhere near as big as what people invent traditionally. If we're we going with disabled people tend to be shown as evil or malform because they have deformities, they're evil. Because
Possibly.
that's more of a morality play, and really the only excellent example of that was Richard III in Shakespeare, because
I mean,
his malformed hand was essentially a signifier of the evil within in that case.
I mean, when I guess I'd be concerned if these people watch the Elephant Man and think he's the villain.
Well, you know, the current writers of Doctor Who think that. Russell T Davies
Hmm.
accidentally spoiled that for everyone.
It turns out people in wheelchairs are actually evil people. I remember all the famous disabled monsters of the real world. Let's see, Hitler,
Well, yeah, he only had
Dahmer.
one testicle. Dahmer was an alcoholic. That is a form of addiction, which can be seen as a
Oh
form of
fuck, you're
disability.
right. Um,
Also, technically, antisocial personality disorder or clinical psychopathy technically is a disability because your brain structure is irrevocably damaged and altered. You actually have a damaged prefrontal cortex.
Kathleen Kennedy.
Anyone addicted to anyone addicted to jerking it in movie theaters because you destroyed your brain. The guy who hosted Double Dare because he had obsessive compulsive disorder, which is a type C personality disorder.
Um,
These are all evil people, by the way, every one of them. Um, Robin Williams because he had clinical depression.
so it says, yeah, it says, actually, no, it does say here, disability and mental illness are facets of the human experience and are not convenient narrative beats behind evil actions or evil people.
They aren't. They're usually not written as that. Usually, in most cases, especially if you read stuff like even on a surface level, if you look at the example of say Batman, the criminals in the rogues gallery that he deals with may be affected by their illness, but a lot of the time it's also they choose to do horrible things despite that.
So I guess they're saying, like, Captain Hook, the reason he's evil is because he lost his hand?
Well, you see, what happened was he was actually a
Oh, wait,
perfectly
hold on.
respectable sailor until Peter Pan cut it off. Then he became evil. Yeah.
How does that explain Luke Skywalker?
He actually was evil until he was like a bizarro. He's a bizarro example. He came from the Negaverse, where actually becoming disabled turns you into a good guy.
Ah.
He was evil all along until it was Darth Vader's greatest plan to save his son from the dark side.
Well, what about the premature aging suffered by Palpatine?
That's just what happens when you party on Naboo for too long.
Darth Maul and his eye disease?
No,
Actually, all the
that's
Sith,
just
they have.
liver failure, man. Unironically, Qui-Gon when he cut him in half saved his life. He destroyed his cancerous liver.
General Grievous, clearly because he's now just a bunch of meat, not even meat, he's just a bunch of organs. Clearly, that's why he became evil, not because he believes the Republic joined up with the group that was trying to kill his people and shot his plane down. Also, the Uzun Vong. It's not because that they are because of political and historical reasons that they became a death cult that ended up killing 365 trillion people. It's
oh,
because they had scarification.
oh God, Squirrel Killer, you're correct. Luke became evil. Remember, he tried to choke out his nephew,
Oh, that's
and he let
Jake.
the galaxy burn. But yeah, the legacy of dealing with so they're basically trying to make a big deal about how you don't try to make a person, which is just like basic writing 101. You
No, no, I love
usually,
this. I love this with the when they talk about harmful mental health representation. Brain marks represent mental and emotional stress. In the same way, a week of long workdays, a friend receiving an injury, or witnessing a death would weigh on a person in your world. Candela Obscura members face stressors and traumatic events that impact them beyond the immediate moment.
Yeah, that's
So,
called post-traumatic stress disorder. Like,
yeah,
unironically,
but just the way they describe it, though, it's like a week long, a week of long work days.
I only saw a demon possessing a young girl that we tried to save in a botched exorcism, and we had to put her down because she was going to kill someone. It wasn't her fault. It was, the entity within her. But honestly, that was just a rough work week. I'll recover it after a few weeks of hardcore drink. Like, when you phrase it like that, that comes off as very what the fuck.
Yeah, it's comes off. The stressors of our world. Being late for work. Uh, Again, just witnessing a death in the family. Your internet cutting out. It's actually the same thing as seeing the things from beyond space and time that shall not be that cause unimaginable horror within your soul. Exactly the same thing.
And also, another thing is that at least especially nowadays, when you cover someone that has a mental illness or is affected by it, it's usually from a more tragic point of view. Like, it's to
But
see
like the
it
Malkavians.
yeah, it's to see like the kind of example of almost torment. To give you an idea, a really good modern example of a tragic character is actually Terry Davis. I know that's silly, but think about it like this. He had
Oh,
the
the
technical
programmer.
knowledge, computer engineering experience, and knowledge to potentially become one of the big members when it comes to computer engineering. Like, we're talking Wozniak level skill here. But it all can't. But because he suffered from schizophrenia, that constantly was something eating at his ability to do what he wanted to do, which was to make an operating system, a good one.
And despite it all, he did. He
Yeah,
legitimately made an operating system.
and it was actually completely functional in the way he wanted it to be. It when it's written like that, it kind of is insulting to it's insulting because yes, there are players that will legitimately play a fish milk, like, ha ha ha, I'm manic, which means I can run around as a clown and just shoot people because I'm crazy, hee hee, I'm a Malkavian. But it also prevents you from playing a a Malkavian that constantly suffers from obsessive compulsive disorder and depression. Someone who knows that their life has to be arranged in this way to just alleviate the desire to seek second death because there's just something internally wrong. Everything in your head is telling you things are wrong. Literally sometimes because, well, the remnants of their progenitor actually whispers to them.
Yeah, it just comes off here like condescending and very much like a
Condescending and
PSA.
yeah, condescending PSA and also ridiculous given that their examples of scars are not even that effective, and it also shows how isolated they are from tragedy.
And like think about the bleed scars then. So that's dissociative identity disorder.
Oh yeah,
That's
the
an
fact that
act
they
an
play it,
actual fucking mutation.
yeah.
And again, well, possession. Straight up, you have another person inside you. Like,
Lucifer was stressed out in this morning commute, so he tried to overthrow the celestial host. Understandable.
also, Dr. Revenant, did Lovecraft possess the writers? No, there'd be a lot more purple prose if that was the case.
Oh no, if Lovecraft possessed the writers, I mean, it would be even more mechanically insane because there'd be no mechanics. It'd also be talking a lot about the dream cycle and the words from beyond, particularly from the Dreamlands. He might be even writing it from legendary Kadath.
But they
Like,
also
it
say
would be
here
much more
that,
esoteric and insane.
just moving back on to ripping apart this whole game, they say that the scars are not supposed to be permanent as it does not align with a modern understanding of healing trauma. Um,
Um,
I'm gonna scroll back
rebuttal.
up here. You lost your right arm. That's permanent. You're not gaining that back.
But my prosthetics. Here's my rebuttal: your spine got twisted in half, and now you feel no sensation from. Let's be fair and go with T4. So anything below your mid chest, you don't feel shit. We still can't fix that. And this is based on
And
like
that's a
turn of the century level tech. To give you an idea, modern prosthetics only came about because of the aftermath of the Great War. Like
oh,
because
he
so
actually
many
makes
people
it.
came back mangled that to live better lives that they had to essentially innovate on the fly just to give them their life back. Same with
He actually makes a
plastic
great point.
surgery, by the way.
Then why call them scars? Scars are permanent. That, that's correct. Like, I think you better call them stains.
Stains would be better. Another better take is, you see, there's a great game called Darkest Dungeon, the first one, which did the same thing. Remember how they covered
Much better
stress?
because yeah, which much better because it was present. It could be temporarily relieved.
Or actually
Um,
completely healed, if you're lucky.
yeah.
You get
So,
you got spicy lungs from the war guest just walking off, baby. Yeah, that's just temporary. You only
oh, I
temporarily have
yeah,
spicy
that
gas
plastic surgery is
lungs.
gonna be great. If yet, I'd recommend not looking at that because it's fucking horrific. But the best example of it would be look at the splicers from BioShock. That's kind of what the faces would look like because that's what the gas did. They disfigured them.
I'm just now envisioning Matt Mercer possessed by Lovecraft, like losing his mind out because Somalians are like in the subway of New York because he's stuck in New York.
I, oh God, I hope we don't get banned. But my God,
What?
dock beasts roaming these metal machines.
I think he might be more horrified at the subway
Oh,
itself. Let's be fair.
well, actually, he'd probably terrified. Well, no, if he somehow lived past 1935, he might have gotten somewhat better.
No, he was getting better. We're just making shit posts. Like just the mental image of him panicking because he's hearing Somali or Swahili or Hmong
The
or
chittering,
any of the millions of languages out there.
the chittering of these giant rats in the holes.
He
Great
literally wrote a
beasts.
book. He literally wrote a book, two of them, two horror stories, when he found out he was part Welsh. Shadow over Innsmouth and The Ancestor.
Oh no, was it late? And the late, or something concerning Arthur Jeremy. I don't know if that's the same one, but that's the other one where I'm spoiling this, but the author recovers some artifacts from his uh, ancestors, and then he kills himself because it turns out that uh, his like great great grandmother was a great white ape.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. It's not The Ancestor, it's that one. But
Which,
yeah,
to be fair, realizing that you're not human might
not
actually
fully human,
be
you should say.
terrifying. Oh, he'd be what? Well, depending on the ancestry, like 164th not human?
So yeah, apparently you can just heal from your scars just because.
Is it exorcism? You just got over that. Actually, how the fuck do you get rid of then the mouths?
I don't know. Apparently there's a second and then last Great War, so I guess there's more than one.
Yeah. Um,
Here's the cavalcade of characters, and now that I'm looking at it, I now feel happy that I think I picked a pretty good thumbnail. I generated a pretty good thumbnail via AI.
pretty good diverse selection of people.
Yeah, I think I nailed it about right. I didn't know it would go full like because there's a bit of Victorian era styling to it, which I didn't quite cotton on to initially. So okay, this
So,
is the important thing, making a character.
yeah. So choose role and specialty. Um, what you get? Just basically, you have two types per role. If you're face, you're either a journalist or you're a magician.
I don't actually like how limiting that is.
I'd like it better if it was more like one is more mundane, one is more supernatural. Just
Well,
like
a little bit of that, and then there's also the problem that I have is that their primary. I mean, I like that they give them slightly different abilities, like their primary drives, but they feel very samey because the only thing that changes is their drive pulls are slightly different.
yeah, muscle is either an explorer or a soldier.
I like how the explorer doesn't even look like a real explorer. It just looks like I don't even know. That doesn't.
Chinese Indiana Jones.
Well, no, they're trying to go for that, but it doesn't work because the area they're exploring doesn't feel like a ruins. It feels like they're just in the back alleys of Swindon, the back alleys of like some fucking post-industrial coal city.
I mean, that is possibly a place of eldritch horror.
I mean, it is, but this doesn't feel like I barely see like it doesn't come off as ruins to me.
Uh, Scholar, be careful. We do have an evil villain in one of these.
Oh no. So we know which one of them committed great crimes during the Great War.
Yep, the doctor in the wheelchair, uh, and the professor. Which, considering she's a doctor, I mean, can't she find a way then to get her out of that scar? I mean,
I
it's
mean,
not
hey, that's the
permanent.
thing. Scars aren't permanent. Oh God, that's one of the many reasons why you probably shouldn't have had that entire section if you're gonna say something like that. Because there's just something in my head going, well, what's there to stop the, like some arcade ritual just for fixing it, or some Dishonored tier
If
like
hmm,
cyberpunk clockwork bullshit to fix it.
if they at least said, because again, if it's a narrative driven, you discuss with the GM if you want to make this scar permanent or temporary.
That would have been a good idea. That would have been an actually good idea.
Uh, he's faking it for attention.
They could be exploring a town left or right after the war. No, I
They-
think they're trying to go for the ancient ruins under Yarnum. I mean,
Yeah.
New Fair, I think it's called. Not Yarnum. Not
Uh,
this is not Bloodborne ripoff. This is not a Bloodborne
I'm at
ripoff.
with the faking for attention, so she's got that carriage parking permit.
So the other two options, there's this for the slink.
Is-
There's the criminal and detective,
And then the weird is a medium or an occultist.
which are basically the fucking same thing.
I think well, considering the time period, medium is more, I guess, discussing with the spirits, while the occult is just an understanding of the supernatural.
I feel like they're reaching really hard for this one.
I mean, once you have the wizard class, how do you differentiate it?
Well, they could have had one of them be a priest. A holy
Oh,
order.
that, yeah, that would have actually made sense.
That would have been somewhat different.
They determine action ratings, which they've already decided for you what your action ratings are.
Yeah, here you go.
And then, don't
With
worry though, you have 3 points to customize.
Oh, by the way, if you're
Much like an
wondering, they didn't even come up with this game system. Apparently, according to Squirrel Killer, it was from some system that tried to make a crunchier version of Powered by the Apocalypse, and then they just decided to take that one step forward and make it go like 2 steps back.
um. Also, be careful when crafting your character. It's crucial to avoid the harmful stereotypes often present in the historical and horror genres.
Okay,
You know, the stereotypes in history.
all right.
So, if creating your sword, do not appropriate another culture's real world history. So that means anyone who's not an American, you cannot do Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
that is deliberately offensive and harmful to the American people.
Well, the problem is they kind of already did it with the character archetypes they're showing here. Like every one of these
Doctor,
are basically stolen from some culture, which means they should all be put to death.
mediums cannot use another tire's culture, and doctors cannot indulge in any historical practices that are rooted in racist and ableist ideologies. So I can't do lobotomy.
Even though the entire point was it was supposed to, I think, be a last ditch effort. Although let's be
I
fair,
can't have a.
lobotomies were actually unpopular even among surgical communities. It was mostly a citizen thing, at least by the
I, I
1940s.
I can't relieve female hysteria. Well, no, wait, Abe. Zach, it might be considered ableist, but it's not racist. It's just sexist.
Well, no, you also relieve male
It,
aggression.
male. Oh yeah. I wait. Hold on.
No, that sounds like a hilarious idea. You're you're a doctor who specializes in relieving temporary insanity.
What's funny? They have a red light district in this setting, so this could totally work. Um. Yeah. So I can't. Well, no, wait. Uh. I can practice what Kellogg believed in.
Yeah, you can. You can also recommend that they take
I'll
radium
be.
pills to gain health from the illumination of the light.
I'll call my character's name the Clipper.
You can also give them laudanum, which is
And
basic.
heroin.
Yeah.
And cocaine.
Oh yeah. Also, you can synthesize Coca-Cola, but it's literally just Coca-Cola, but with cocaine in it. It's a lot more
You know
bitter
what?
too.
Leeches are not racist or ableist. And neither are the four humors.
Yeah, apparently they have a modern understanding of medicine. So, having some wrong-headed especially since you're dealing in the occult, for all you know, because of the other side, maybe humor balancing actually can work.
I mean, basically, they're just doing that as a warning. So, don't make your character into Dr. Mengele.
Well, no shit. No shit.
Um, and then they so
But by the way,
after that,
I always find it when I always find it funny when they go, this is cultural appropriation. And then when they show an example of positivity, it actually somehow usually looks more racist than the actual appropriation.
yeah.
That's
Uh,
always my favorite.
then they determine the drives, which again is already pre-made with characters.
That's just fair. Basically, World of Darkness does the same thing.
Your guild actions. You
I
get
think
to
it's kind of
choose one
pointless
of.
though. Like, look, it's just you either get full specialty in one, or you get one and then two. That's kind of lame.
So they're really
There's
taking
like
off
no
from the
difference.
modern Bethesda gaming example of you now get your one ability from your role and one ability from your speciality.
This is so crap. I mean, you also get gilded actions. This is so flat.
Because it's all things like soaking, adding to your dice roll, uh, spending a point to do something, I guess, without a test.
Also, also remember their main specialty, the thing they start with in terms of their action ratings, those are all predetermined too, which I think is
Also,
kind of
I do
dumb.
I find it interesting. They bring up a character example of Isadora Alvarez. Uh, First of all, sergeant in the military who's a woman. In this time period, and
Well, they don't care about that. That's sexist.
yeah,
I
that
mean, I
that last
legally
name
should be
is
I legally should have women in the military so that they can carry the same kit that a man does and have the double worry of possibly becoming a victim in the aftermath of an assault, especially if they get captured by enemies from the other side.
oh yeah. Also, apparently she did lose her left arm, but replaced it with a mechanical construct because phantom limb syndrome. What is that?
Also, fine
Or
mechanics. What's
how the
that?
connecting organic nerves to metal. How the fuck does that work?
So where are you seeing this? Because I don't know where you are at all.
I was at page 29. I am skipping over the place because
Fair
holy
enough.
fuck are these abilities boring to read.
Oh yeah, they're completely dull. So let's skip to the bunch because there's a bunch of them. Adam, this is fiction. I don't give a shit. This is still so allegedly based on modern times today. That's the problem. When you start saying things should be more like modern times today and you ignore the fantastical and you constantly hammer home that this is supposed to be of a certain time period, I don't give a shit. Unless you
The point
expressly
of it,
mention that she used ritual occult magic to make that arm essentially get feedback, that means nothing to me.
yeah.
Like there's a
Oh, you
reason
say
why there was
women and men no difference.
there's a reason why
Yes.
after this Italian condottiere lost an arm, yes, he got a replica of one in the 1500s. No, he tended to not fight with his sword anymore after that.
Uh, and you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that, except if they're trying to make it more like, is this supposed to be like replication of this real world setting, but with a little bit of a fantastical spin?
Which would be fine, but they keep walking back on it. Women soldiers? Sure, I don't give a shit. To give you an idea, active combatants that were women have been documented throughout history, Jeanne d'Arc being one of the most famous ones. I'm just
Um,
pointing out that
Honestly, for me, it was the name because if this is trying to be like more like a like London kind of setting, I don't know, it just feels odd to have very culturally specific names.
yeah, if you're just playing with the aesthetic, that would be fine, but they're not. They kind of play around with both.
Or make entirely fake last names. It's fiction.
By the way, if you're gonna complain about the fiction, don't worry. When we talk about the world building, it's gonna be worse.
Playing a doctor character who diagnoses all the female characters I meet with long COVID and cystic fibrosis, and not hysteria. Um, yeah, you just have all these abilities that just,
Yeah, I'm not reading any of them. I'm just looking at some of the examples.
yeah, that allow you to maybe do burn something or take a scar or make a roll in a specific circumstance. That's a
I,
bit of
I,
a problem with these kind of more limited games that you can't really have a lot of talents and feats and other abilities that you'd have in a much more crunchier game.
I kind of love how they decided to make the thief character legitimately just a crappier version of Robin Hood that knows sign language. Hail in sign language? What the fuck's that? I don't know.
I mean, that's at least appropriate that they don't say it's English Sign Language, because, well, England doesn't exist.
Oh yeah, that's the country they're in. Sorry, it's so forgettable.
Yeah. So then, at the end of it all, I'm at page
Yeah, I don't
33.
blame
They
you.
they
This
say
is tedious.
what the character details are.
Oh,
Are they
also
joined Candela
soulmates.
Obscura?
Bleh.
Yeah. What they
What
hope to
are they? Oh,
overcome? What do
relationships and
they look like?
touchstones. Sorry.
Yeah. And their name and pronouns.
Oh, lovely. Wait, is this after Circle?
I'm on page 33.
This
It
is
says step 7 at.
okay.
Honestly, we could just skip to whatever you're at.
Yeah, because I kind of jumped way ahead.
So creating your circle, it basically, how did your group form up? Don't know if you needed a D6 for that. You're not Games Workshop making lore possibilities for Kill Team Army.
By the way, I like how this lady is staring in horror at the evil person about to unleash the demons from this book, and the house cat
Oh
knows and
yeah,
can
you're right.
anticipate his death.
He's also got the cat. That means he's double evil.
Yeah, I didn't
You
catch the
choose
pronouns. I caught it right as I was scrolling back down. Oh God.
uh they then say to choose the name of the circle, choose a chapter house location. You then get abilities. Uh so you have additional bonuses. As well as now again resource points to either clear marks, refresh all used drives resistances, or take another d6 that can be used on your mission.
I'm surprised they actually bothered to give mechanical reasons for this.
And then how to play. After a picture of assumably some sort of hunter and a, a giant I got what are those ships with the giant balloons?
Depends. This looks like a Zeppelin because it has an internal structure.
That's that one.
It looks wrong though. Like they never saw what a Zeppelin actually looks like, or they're trying to make it look fantasy creepy. Which fair enough,
So
but it just kind of looks a bit weird. It actually looks more like a
this
UFO.
yeah, so the whole thing next is basically running a mission or an assignment.
Actually, Princess Cyanide has the best answer. He's hunting the giant sperm floating in the sky. There we go. It's mountainous. Oh no, it's Mountains
Um,
of Madness. If it was shit, there we go.
uh, and yeah, they just this is a whole section on how do you actually play the game.
Oh no,
As
you're
in,
right,
how
Squirrel
do you?
Killer. It is both wasting pages, but the way they formatted the text also makes it kind of blocky and kind of a pain in the ass to read. It's a lot of blah 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 blah, but not designed
Yeah,
in a way to catch the eye.
this this is entirely explaining more about well, what do the different actions mean, despite
Oh god.
them having like they provide strike is a punch, break, grapple. I think kind of know what that means.
I like how a dragon's about to eat all those sheep.
Using
Jesus
an action.
Christ.
y- Okay,
Play structure.
page
It's like
52.
bit by bit
S-
shit.
s- Go all the way to page 52. This is where they introduce gear.
Oh no, they talk about player versus player. It's possible a player character will find themselves in a situation where they want to make a roll against another player character. This kind of play is not built into the system. So when this happens, have a discussion at the table about the purpose of the roll and desired outcome for both parties. Because, we script our own shows, so script your own. Just kind of know everyone collectively how your little theater of the mind self-congratulatory circle jerk will go and just kind of script it out as you go along.
So if another player is possessed, I can't actually do anything to stop them.
Yeah, you're right, Squirrel. Oh, I'm sorry. Repeat that because I was reading something else. I got distracted.
Oh,
ADHD.
so if another player is possessed, I can't do anything to them because I'd be
Possibly.
doing player against player.
Possibly if the player getting possessed says, "I don't want you to hurt me."
Oh god, these people would have a terrifying time playing Wraith.
They'd have an awful time. I would love to see Matt Mercer try to wrangle them into playing a game of Paranoia. That'd be fucking hilarious.
No, no, Wraith. We're gonna be playing it using this book, Charnel Houses of Europe,
I mean, if he wanted to commit career suicide, go right ahead, man.
to to honor this year's Yom HaShoah, which is the holiday remembering the Holocaust.
No, 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 no. Better yet, he gets himself prepared to look like he's one of the restless dead, as if summoned by the witch that summoned Samuel to warn Saul about what he's done.
Oh no, he's and in appropriate attire.
like
But
maximum career suicide.
but here's the problem: is the wraiths? Well, they can also be the people that died and the people that did the killing.
Oh, by the way, Squirrel Killer,
Still,
that's what I
still
got
showing up at the
sidetracked
ladder.
by. Squirrel Killer makes an excellent point. Why is this not double columned? Why is none of this double columned?
You see, because if that was the case, this would be about at least a half order. And no one's gonna be paying. I don't know, was it $40 for a 100-page book? You're not Games Workshop.
Just use more pictures, and that's what figures and tables and charts do. Like that's the point.
But then you'd have to pay for the art.
They called over the designer to improve the rules for player versus player, and their response was, "Just figure it out yourself." What the fuck?
I do it
Whatever the
IRL.
situation, resist the urge to immediately utilize dice. Slow down and have a conversation, ensuring that the conflict is truly between the characters involved in the scene and not the players at the table. What if they're fucking
Fuck, do they think
possessed?
do they think people are gonna? This isn't paranoia. You're not sabotaging each other.
It can happen. It sometimes happens, especially if you have a character whose whole shtick is they have something dark in their past that they're trying to keep hidden, or they have a secret other identity. That happens.
Like I don't know, like a thief.
Like they're probably not going to be blatant about being a thief.
Um,
They might call themselves just like a private detective for all you know. They might actually lie about being a detective. Or as a legitimate businessman.
so I'm on page 52 because this is where they actually talk about gear.
Good idea. Also, I like how they wasted time to get a fake railway ticket for their fictional setting when they could have, figured out how to do player versus player instead.
So again, they have the gear, whatever they need, but anything additional, they have 3 pieces of gear. Um, though all members can carry a hand weapon. Uh, some may have something tailored towards them. Certain pieces of gear have descriptions of the mechanical effects that come in mind. So if they soak, if they add +1 on rolls, if they gild a roll, or if they have a number of uses.
Okay, so that's a little more
Like
crunch than I thought I would ever see from them.
so, they give specific gear for Candela Obscura, a bleed containment vial, a hand weapon, and a bleed detector, which could be a flashlight, a spyglass, a music box, or something else. So again, can it be a small BFG 9000?
I love the idea that you just have a gun that specializes in detecting bleed. See, my gun gets hot and fires a bullet on its own whenever we're in an area with high bleed.
Why don't they give it a specific standardization to fit the theme? Like
Oh, you mean like what Chronicles of
instead of,
Darkness did?
well, I'm thinking like this: if it's supposed to be a gas lamp setting, make it a fucking lantern
Yeah.
as the bleed detector.
Or
I mean,
maybe like arcane lights, like you do a little dark ritual and you could absorb the bleed to make a glowy stick.
no, because here's the thing: if you're in darkness, then entirely nothing's there. But if it lights up while you're in complete darkness, oh fuck.
There's a slight oh yeah, there is a big difference between a shank and a knife. And a handgun, I should say. I like how one of them's a random firearm.
Which should significantly do more damage.
Yep.
Also, what kind of gun? Are we talking because a handgun could be honestly anything, right? Could be
Oh,
a,
I just got
a
shot in the
semi-auto,
I just
a
got shot in the
six-shooter,
face with a 45 caliber bullet. Not any worse than getting stabbed slightly in the leg with a toilet knife.
and then a bleed containment vial, a small container that can hold remnants of magical phenomenon. But isn't this like is it intangible? Like they give us no description of
Yeah, they
what.
don't really explain what the bleed is.
Yeah.
Blunderbuss
You
is a
then
mild injury. Yeah, you get blasted with like 60. You get blasted with a shell the size of like your finger. I'm fine.
here I
However,
have this weapon. It's
however,
called,
if you kink shame them, they will die.
I got the, I have the cricket. as my gun. Men in Black.
I'm aware of the noisy cricket.
I was imagining that showing up
Specialty gear, yeah, circle gear, okay.
here.
Oh, here's some more stuff
Character
that.
advance.
Oh,
So
they're.
character advancement is.
So these are the objectives your characters are supposed to do.
Yeah. Uh,
This is so
Basically story
stupid.
beats.
This is page filler. This section here is
This.
fucking page filler. This is,
Oh no.
oh god, we
Page
need
filler
page
comes
filler.
next, where they give a full example of play for multiple pages. And I mean multiple pages. To the point where the next chapter is page 65.
Reminder, just as a reminder, this is after serious playtesting where they ran into critical errors in their own goddamn stream. This is after the reworks.
Well, playtesting doesn't necessarily mean they've read the book.
That is bold of me to assume that they have read the book. Oh, also, conveniently at the full example of play, that's when they start shoving pronouns down your throat in very ham-handed ways.
Because we need to know what the pronouns of these
60
characters that.
pages in, and they only started doing that just to get, I don't know, crappy social media. Oh, by the way, this is the only section that's double columned. This is double columned, but the rest of the book fucking isn't. What is this? Did the previous editor get fired?
I think the bleed overtook him.
I don't know whether or not this. I'm gonna still rate
May,
this
may,
higher than Chult, but God, it's getting closer and closer to like an actual competition. Holy shit. Mm,
I mean, they haven't put any disguised fetishes in this game, so.
not yet. Don't worry, it'll show up soon. Oh, what you're missing, Night of the Day? The best way to describe this is Call of Cthulhu if thrown through the lens of Bloodborne, and you're in Yarnum. I mean, you're in not Yarnum, and you're playing a rules light version of a reform to the Powered by the Apocalypse engine. Because there was a game that took the Powered by the Apocalypse, tried to make it better, made, I don't know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, slight improvement, and they looked at the extra crunch and said, yeah, we don't need that. Hasn't Critical Role made supplements for D&D before? Well, I mean, do you mean paid for them to pay for other people to do it for them? Yeah, probably. Reminder, these are people that have to stage the results of their campaigns because they can't handle the concept of dice randomness. Oh yeah, questions to consider. I'm sorry, like my brain was just like hemorrhaging a bit. So anyway, here's old Yarnum, or a. Actually, this kind of feels like the lead down to Blighttown from Dark Souls.
Yeah, this has a bit of a Dark Souls vibe.
Well, of course they are. They're ripping off a
Um,
lot of things.
no, they cited Elden Ring. For some fucking reason, Elden Ring,
Well,
even
they
though
didn't want to make
this
it too
has
obvious.
nothing. Well, no, this has nothing to do with like any sort of Japanese interpretation of Norse mythology, as
Oh no,
filtered
there
through the
is an
lens of
editor.
George R. R. Martin.
No, Tech, there is an editor. Let me go up to show you the person who actually edited it. Here she is. Hi, Karen. There was an editor. They actually went through serious reworks because they were missing critical things for the game to even function. This is
Is
the
her name
final
actually
product.
Karen?
Yes, her name is actually Karen.
You know, I'm anyone who has that name now. I think you get a ability to freely change it
Also,
because
I love the stolen Lasombra art here. I'm pretty sure this is an actual Lasombra character that was used in Vampire 20th. I feel like it was, and just repurposed for this, but with a Bloodborne twist.
Yeah. So magic, no one knows about it, but it is real. It is very real. As we said, bleed is a
Also, I
corrupting
still hate the
influence from
term
magic.
Fairlands. I hate that it's called that, especially in the way it is, because it's so generically boring.
It's they could have just said another term for the UK, or the Shire but darker.
Oh God, yeah, you're right. This is the there's always two wolves in me, and one of them's always screaming and being stupid.
Uh, Now they have the phenomena of these mysterious occurrences, which could be anything from a flying beast, a lake of seaweed that drowns victims, blood raining from the sky, a wardrobe that transfers human consciousness between bodies. You know, a wide variety of horrifying phenomena.
Yeah.
I do remember there's an organization that people have made up online that are able to actually break down and classify these things.
Mm-hmm.
Safe, Euclid, and Keter.
There's a couple other classifications, but if you're wondering, that's not how dangerous they are. It's literally just how hard it is to contain it.
Yeah, almost like categorization is a way that we try to define things that we do not understand,
Honestly, an
even though
SCP Foundation RPG might not be a bad idea. The problem is you'd have to try to
they made
make it
one.
well, you'd also have to try to make it unique to against Delta Green as a comparison.
They kind of did.
Okay, that's good. I don't know if
Uh,
it's a good book, but that's a good they tried.
they they did in a way by making it so that one thing they did like different characters actually get access to different gear as they have different, security clearances.
All right.
That and ta tailoring it to maybe specific SCPs.
Also,
But so
yeah, Piak has a good point. As soon as you're talking about otherworldly entities, that evil is a real thing now.
Well, hold on. Let's see the creatures and monsters. So we have things like giant bird-like beasts with sharp curved beaks and long talons. Um, that only feed on living flesh.
Okay,
I don't see that as villainous.
that's just a man-eating bird. I mean, there are animals that will eat people. Hell, chickens will if given a chance.
The Chemagast, which is a bodies made of blackened bone and
No, no,
flickering embers.
ruins of
So
old fare. Hey, guess what? That's the ghosts of Yarnum.
no, no. Here's the other thing that they're ripping off. They're ripping off Warhammer.
They are.
They're ripping off one of the sub factions for the Osiark Bone Reapers, which are basically dead,
Well, I
uh,
don't think they know about
bones.
40K too good, so I'm
No,
assuming they're ripping
no,
off
this is
Bloodborne
Sigmar,
here.
but bones. It's bone soldiers that basically have the souls of a bunch of warriors inside them. But one of them is a faction that, when they die, they explode, so they have, blackened bones.
I think in this one, I think
They
they're
don't like.
basing it on
They
Yarnum.
also don't like that.
They're basing it on Bloodborne entity.
Yeah, but usually that's
Dude,
wolves and other shit like
they're
that.
not thinking about Sigmar when they were making that. That's way too much crunch.
All right. Uh, Bilge creepers. Uh, Small creatures that look like severed human hands.
Okay.
Environment hazards. Branches that drain the life force from its victims.
All
Again,
right.
blood raining down from the sky.
Yeah.
That's also acidic.
These are pretty
And
ho-hum phenomenon.
and flowers that give off nightmares. Oh, I'd love to see what the stats and the effects of these creatures are.
Did they rip off the LSD flowers from that one episode of Star Trek?
No, nightmares. Not.
Oh no, no, no. Apparently you are right. Mercer might have ripped off the because he does have a Sigmar army.
He does.
Yeah. He
I mean, are
might
they
have
well
actually ripped
painted?
him off.
That let's hold on. What's it? I mean, that definitely is a Games Workshop type name, but I mean, if it is, it's a subtle one. I'll have to give him credit there.
If you're comparing this to Rebel Moon, we've gone in a bad direction. Yeah, yeah. Actually, there's a lot of
I
parallels to Rebel Moon because this is a brave attempt to make something new, and oh god, is it fallen flat on its face.
I haven't seen though the sexual analogies yet.
Come peer into the beyond with Madame Morgan. Well, that's just racist against the Irishman.
Spirits and entities. Uh, the Phantom Fiddler. Uh, the Crimson Woman. The Laughing Boy, and the uh, religious miners. You know, the ones that are building tunnels beneath the walls.
Oh yeah, that's actually more creative than
Which,
any of the previous three you just listed.
which for those listening in the future, is a reference to in early 2024 a bunch of Orthodox Jews getting arrested for building uh, a tunnel underneath their building in New York City.
Oh yeah, Coyote and Crow kicks this thing's ass. I'm not gonna
Oh
lie on
God,
this
yeah.
one, Tech. This is a much worse book than Coyote and Crow.
Then you have artifacts,
Also,
which
remember, this is their big lore. This is like their specialty, and they can't even come up with interesting monsters. Or in this case, even interesting ghosts. Hell, I on the fly created a killer milkman who went after children in a Freddy Krueger like nightmare way. That was like instant. I came up with that on the fly. This is their specialty. They had time to write this. They had time to plan this. And this is the best they get?
oh, heck, no, no, they do not have Jew
Fuck.
tunnels. I made that entirely up.
The Jew tunnels are still smarter than anything they've made. The Phantom Miners, like, as the Great War ground on, a community of religious folk believed that the end times came. They decided to dig a haven underground. It collapsed, but you can still hear them dig to this day in the hills.
and their weird clarinet-like music.
Isn't that much creepier than the fucking Laughing Boy and Crimson Woman shit that they made?
Oh
Also
yeah,
more
these are
interesting, odd.
yeah. Um, they
Look, I
give
know
up
reality can
artifacts,
sometimes outdo fiction, but like, fucking try.
and then they give alchemy. They have a whole page on alchemy,
Oh
which
no
is
no.
ancient,
Let's see
and
what crappy artifacts they got. Conjurer's
well,
Companion, which is a mysterious journal. The Nightshade
the necklace,
Necklace. Man, this ain't no Necronomicon. This ain't no Venomous Mysterious. This ain't no Trapahedron that can summon the Haunter from the dark. This is no, this is no gem that can summon a Jinni, the Lurker in the Shadows. This is none of that. Fucking pale imitation of the horrifying artifacts you can find in any other setting. This is the part of their shit that's supposed to be where their passion is. This is their world building, and it's fucking falling flat. You know what I'm about to say that's going to be completely blasphemous? Derek Deshaw, when he wrote The City of the Purple Worm, put more care into describing the city than they did on their own monsters.
oh,
When Wenger
that's damning.
Satanis can come up with a little more description for his world building than you can, and you're claiming to be a specialist in storytelling, something went fucking wrong.
Yeah, it's
I'm not
over at that
saying that
point.
this is worse than Chalt. It isn't. There's a bit more to this than Chalt had. But God, I would say Chalt's a more interesting read.
Um,
Anyway,
so
Alchemy,
then
let's see
they
how they fuck this up.
uh basically it's ancient civilizations magic.
Oh yeah, because you gotta rip off Bloodborne. Yeah, boy.
Even then they didn't have alchemy. I
It's the
recall
blood.
they yeah blood, but this is basically just
It's the blood,
uh,
but shit.
yeah, you want to use some ancient civilization stuff? Go ahead. Again, we're not going to give you any stats for it.
Yeah, more mammoth civilization. That would have been better. Another okay watercolor. In this case, it's supposed to represent an orrery, which it's kind of neat. Although wait, no, actually, is this supposed to be an? Yeah, it's supposed to be a fucked up orrery, but they don't understand at all how actual planetary systems are supposed to work.
Listen, if you want to go crazy like this, just look up John Blanche's work.
Oh, by the way, if you're wondering, another one of the problems there during planetary solar system creations, it's usually in a relatively flat disk. Any eccentric orbits are usually the result of rogue bodies that either came out from further beyond or due to collisions and being drawn back into the sun. Uh, the
Oh,
fact of the
that
matter that these are mostly stable elliptical orbits, but in a complete variety. Now, admittedly, this is a dark magic setting, so I don't give a shit. It's probably just the result of how their creator worked, but on a fundamental level, this is silly. To give you an idea, I originally thought this was supposed to be a simulation of an atom
it
for a
could be as
second.
well.
For a second, the problem is there's other things orbiting which indicate moons.
They could go crazy as like this is an atom, and turns out our entire universe is but an atom of an even greater atom.
That'd be cool. Mercer's usually pretty good about writing monsters. Well, his examples in here suck.
Did he even write this book?
No, I think he barely had anything to do with it, other than maybe
Well,
commissioning
then
it.
that explains it.
I'm going to
So
assume
now,
just because of that.
so now we have Candela Obscura. Its
Here we go.
origins, based on the Tomb of Lumos, which records that it existed before cities such as Oldfair. Um, in a time before electricity, before the reign of flame, people congregated around enclaves of knowledge, advanced the very scaffolding of civilizations, um, and they stored it in writing.
Ah, yes.
Um,
So that's what happened to Old Fair. It collapsed due to the university bubble.
um, I mean, you didn't need to tell us what the libraries are called, just call them libraries. Um, what the light keepers or anything like that. You just need to say it's an ancient. It. We've found. Actually, you know what? No, this is too boring and too flat to be anything horrifying.
The
You go,
minutiae, also the fact that this secret society is apparently from an ancient time and it's written with all of the passion of a fifth grade book report.
yeah, no, no, you go this way for your horror. We don't know when this organization began. We found the fourth. A bunch of people found the fourth pharaohs
Well, no,
years
no.
ago.
Here's how you would do it. The organization has been around since as long as I can remember. It's from the point of view of the writer. Has been around as long as the oldest member has been. From the first time we found the Pharaohs to now. And then you find out more and more that horrifically, this might not even be the original incarnation because it's specifically called the fourth Pharos. That
And
implies there
that
might
we've
have been three prior ones.
Oh, and no, no, here's where you go. We've found records of similar organizations existing in ancient civilizations,
In both
but
Old
right
Fair
at their
before the
apex,
alchemical accidents, yeah.
right before the fall. Um, so it somehow has chapters throughout the world, which, now I think about it, considering that they can travel through the thinning, it's fine. They have their chapters, they have
Uh,
their light
Squirrel
keepers.
Killer, come on. Mercer just does what I do, which is just take a monster and add a gimmick. That's good monster. That's good character design. You just rip apart other people's assets and then disassemble them like an AI generation. Let's be fair. I do that a lot myself. Because sometimes being creative is just knowing how to steal other people's ideas and doing them with a new twist. The problem is nothing is being done here that's interesting. This is dull as dog water.
Um, they then give us the councils, the Radiant Order of Light Keepers, the Conclave of Lumosity. Okay, I am going to be saying they're ripping off
Ah,
Games Workshop here.
bureaucracy.
We have too many references to light here in different formats. This is what Games Workshop does, but better. Because then they're able to come up with things like for the Nurgle faction, Sloppity Bile Piper.
Ah, yes, yes. Bureaucracy. This is what I think about when I think of a horror setting. I think of the organizational flowchart tables and departments within the Bureau. Which, don't get me wrong, that is important to know. It's actually quite important to know. But I still don't know what the fuck Hale is. I don't know what the hell New Fair is, and I sure as hell don't know what the Fairlands are.
Um, yeah. So yeah, they just explain more about what the bureaucracy of this organization is. Um, what they that they see themselves as the protectors of humanity. Um,
You know, the best part is there's all of these sub-commissions and sub-orders within the organization. No wonder they keep falling apart, it seems like.
they ripped off SCP with this. They took a look at the SCP wiki and like we could do that,
Upon reaching the fifth
and
chapter, they discovered the stitch remains of the Lightkeepers forming some horrible oogada boogada monster. And blah blah blah, creepy, horrible. They're like trying to throw in weird little what the fuck horror things in the structure of their system.
I mean that
Reminder,
that should
Critical
work.
Role, who helped fund this, prides itself on writing, and this is how it's getting done. This is actually getting on Chalt level here, where it's just like weird fucking side tangents are just thrown in, either to add space, maybe create a page. Holy shit.
Um, so I'm at the next faction.
Fourth Pharaohs, operating within the shadow of morality. Oh, finally, history within the Fairlands. Maybe we actually can get something No, it's the same shit they already said.
No, it's not. It's not. Um,
Uh...
just they set up a covert chapter in Old Fair.
Oh, hey, look, our first they, them pronoun user.
Xander Ikari.
Yeah,
Now, well, now here's the next faction of people that know about magic in this setting that no one
that
knows
they
about
never
magic.
mentioned until now.
The Exoteric Order of New Sciences. Really squeezing in that English acronym.
No, it's even. Well, not only is the acronym stupid on purpose so they can do a funny, this is ripping off the chaos. What's the antithesis of SCP? The chaos insurgency.
Yeah. Okay. You have the Chaos Insurgency, but no, this would not be the Chaos Insurgency.
They
It's
want to
the
make it all
public. It's
public.
no, it's honestly none of them do. None of the factions the SCP want to make it public. They know that's gonna fuck things up. This is the people that are like, let's merge science and technology together.
No, they want to
Science and
make it all
magic
open.
together. So open source magic.
Apparently, they also work in the. Oh God, they're ripping. Oh God, they're ripping off the Ascension War. They're working in the shadows to try to make the public use of magic more. They're literally ripping off the Paradigm
Oh
War.
my god, yeah. This is the fucking or technocracy.
This is ripping off the goddamn Paradigm War from Ascension. GG.
Um, the next one is the ripoff of the FBI SCP group,
Yeah,
the Office of Unexplained Phenomena.
or either that or they're just ripping off Vascu.
No, it is entirely that because of the acronym, the fact that it's underfunded. Um, very few officials know about it. Yeah, no, this is your X Files.
Yep, Vascu. Lovely.
Um,
This is actually
the pot,
shittier. By the way, remember, this is where they're supposed to be at their strongest, in their lore building.
the Pyre,
What a
fanatical
wet
sect of the
fart.
Ascendancy. So your Inquisition. Actually, no. In fact, because they are led by a High Inquisitor.
Yeah, they're the radical, secretive sect of the Ascendancy. Blah, blah, blah.
Um, Red Hand,
Wait, are they just kind of also ripping off how the covenants are supposed to work? Where
maybe. Then you have the Red Hand faction, which is just Marshall, Carter, and Dark.
yeah, and their whole thing is just selling magical items.
The Unabridged. which are immortal humans who are immortal because of magic.
Well, that's something. That's something that
Um,
wasn't mentioned as a possibility in any of the setting at all until just fucking now. I mean, I'm not
um,
surprised, but like, okay.
oh, so it's your fucking Illuminati. You have a guy who, um, you have William Farah, this guy who's created Azoth. He's created Azoth.
Okay.
So they're ripping off what?
They might actually be ripping off Joel.
Oh my God, you're uh, Fat- Fatima
Because because
Kofi.
that's the stuff that the planet of Chult mines out. It's called
They're
Azoth.
also they're ripping off Vampire at this point because every powerful figure is now turns out is an immortal.
Yawn. Oh, by the way, another she they.
Um, and
Some
finally,
literal page filler. This is all page filler to try to build like, you know.
halfway through, we're finally getting to the Fairlands.
Hey, look, it's Skavenblight. I mean, Old Yarnum. I mean, Old Fair.
So, uh, one of the 12 regions within the country of Hale, incredibly diverse in geographic range.
Basically,
Recently,
they couldn't be arsed to come up with a map, so they just made it up on the fly.
recently dealt with a cold snap, which caused hunger, food shortages, a world war, but people got better.
All right.
Um, their primary organization is three institutions that kind of control everything: the primacy, the ascendancy, and the periphery. Government, church, and police.
Which is probably the shittiest way to describe all of them.
Yes.
Wait a
Um,
minute. Wait, no. I just realized something really fucking stupid. Since we mentioned Aleister Crowley and crazy occultism, this actually might be a nod to Mencius Moldbug's neo-reactionary movement. This might be a Curtis Yavin meme we're seeing here in real life.
you'd think any of them would work on this?
Well, no, because you have the authoritarian government, the religion, the theocrats that they're supposed to work with, and the fascistic thugs in the form of the police. This is neo-reaction, NRX, Dark Enlightenment, baby.
I'm gonna need a drink.
Come on, don't you don't you like how this setting's now basically Mencius Moldbug's wet dream?
It
The
won't
death
be.
of liberalism.
Well, considering I don't know much about them, but they do say in the time period it's supposed to be the year 1907.
Oh, isn't that's
Note I did not signify if it's in the year of our Lord, if it's before the Common Era, or in the age of the Guild. So it's just the year 1907, 23rd era, fourth Kalpa.
By the way, this is a lovely little map. What would have made more sense is to perhaps make it a two-page spread rather than this stupid decision. I will say that
But
the color palette and choice looks bad, and actually the Chalt comparisons continue because this kind of reminds me of the because he has done stuff like this. They might have commissioned the same fucking artist for this one, which is
also
funny.
did say
It's funny to
if you
me.
can if you can imagine art, music, locations, fashion, and inventions that appeared anywhere from the mid 1800s to the mid 1900s in industrialized nations, it also exists within the Fairlands.
Okay,
Oh, great!
so it's Pathfinder.
Can't wait to have my um what's the right word for it? The racist caricatures of African Americans
Oh, minstrel show.
as part of the set.
You want to watch the weekly minstrel show? I mean,
Sure,
personally,
I mean it existed.
I prefer the vaudevilles.
Though we might not, because it does say what doesn't exist here is institutionalized racism, homophobia, transphobia, or any other form of prejudice that were so prominent in your world at this time.
Oh, where's that shit? Because I like, is it further
That
on past the map, or did I just again skim it?
it's the page, no, page right after the map.
Oh, okay.
It
Oh, here we go. What
says,
doesn't exist here is all of this stuff.
yeah,
Uh,
uh,
why this is the case, I don't know. Especially since
there
when
was
we
also,
cover what their religion's going to be like, you think there would actually be a shitload of homosexual bigotry against them, I should
yeah,
say, homophobia. Sorry, I
they
had
do,
a brain fart.
they do say there is no countrywide sense of bigotry, mind you, after 6 years of a massive global war. To,
I will
to
say,
make a point of that,
literally, when we
we
cover,
only,
no, no,
uh,
when we cover their religion, you will completely understand why they would probably be transphobic and homophobic.
yeah, I'd also just to give an example. Remember, the U.S. went to war with Germany for a single year in the First World War.
Yep.
That obliterated most of the Germanic-speaking identity in the United States.
Woodrow Wilson, the greatest monster we've ever elected to become president. And that's saying a lot, because we also put Andrew Jackson in the goddamn chair.
Let's qualify greatest monster of the 20th century.
I'd say also 21st century so far. Who knows? Maybe we'll be
Oh,
really lucky and get an even bigger monster in the 21st century.
Nick Fuentes,
Oh, God. Oh,
state mandated chat boys.
that would be so horrible. I already can see my eyes bleeding.
Well, let's move on, delve further into this horror.
Racism
Go
as a
past the
concept we
time.
understand. Well, yeah, because of the Spanish-based racial caste system they used to divide and conquer their colonies. You'd still have horrendous amounts of ethnocentrism. That was a thing as old as the fucking Iron Age. The Greeks were
Ethnocentrism,
notoriously xenophobic.
regionalism. Yeah, xenophobia would be the right term.
And also, don't forget what the Romans personally thought about the native Britons, considering them the stupidest and least trainable population of humans that have ever walked the earth, and how they described
Also, I
that they could
realize,
just sit there in the swamp for 3 days doing nothing.
yeah. Also realize this. What about classism?
Classism is a
This
big
is
issue in this time period because of social
this is the
tensions due to
mid.
the rich and
Yeah,
poor.
this is the mid. Supposed to be like 1800s. What the fuck is classism not in here? Um, but moving on, I'm skipping entirely past the timeline
Yeah,
and want to show everybody on page 92 the Hail flag.
I like how they have this timeline and it's just some bare minimum stuff. But yeah, ethnocentrism, regionalism, and religious persecution would all be very common, even if you like try to throw out like institutionalized racism. That's kind of a problem. That's a hey, it's a triangle flag.
It's a tri-colored flag, but the colors,
Yeah.
just something about it is just like there's no symbol,
Well,
you know.
a lot of flags are very simple. I mean, the first flag ever
Yeah.
documented was the Danish flag, which was just the St. George's cross.
Also, I have no idea what this means. Like when we look at
I
a
think my
flag today,
problem is there's the dark green, like it's actually a quad color,
yeah,
but it's like done really shitty.
that's the. I think that's shadowing, unless that is quad color, in which case this is
It looks
awful.
terrible. Yeah, it looks worse if it's quad
Yeah,
coloring.
I I just don't know what it means. Like if you had a symbol, like an eagle or a sword or something that
You don't need
would
that.
signify what it would be.
You
Well,
don't
no, I'm
need
just
that.
saying if it was just a symbol, but this flag, I have no idea what it's supposed to mean.
You know,
What does the triangle symbolize?
yeah,
You know,
because
when you look at a flag in the real world and you see red, white, and blue, you know that you know, it's recalling America or the French or
well,
something of a
literally the concept of the tricolor in France is the blood. The blood that was spilled. Égalité, fraternité, and igualité. It also represented the blood shed during the revolution. I forget what the blue meant, and I forgot what the white meant. But each of them,
But
but red
also,
traditionally indicates blood shed, or is the color that indicates that they are trying to do better by the people, because it's often the populist color. White often
when
is a
symbols on
symbol of
flag,
purity.
um,
Black can
yeah,
actually
and
represent richness of soil and life, depending on where you're from, too.
if we're going by if this means anything like party colors, this is somehow a conservative, libertarian green
Well, no, no.
country.
Here's the thing, though. I can actually understand it's tricolor. Let me explain. I'm explaining because they're stupid and they don't know how to explain this for you. The yellow indicates the prosperity of Hale itself. It is the It is the mountains that you saw on that map. It indicates the wealth that they sit upon. Green is their agricultural farmlands. It is the heart of those. It is the heart of the fertile soil that they are from. Blue represents the skies and oceans, representing above and beyond the possibilities that they have.
Oh wow, that
There's an
is
actual logic to it if you actually know a little bit about how flag design works. The problem is, I made that up. That's not something they did.
so. They explain in the history there was once an ancient civilization named or a city named Faria. Then it fell,
Yep.
and then it transformed to Old Fair. Then that fell
That's basically your
during the
Rome.
reign under Empress Iomi and Emperor Claudius. And nice for them to know the pronouns when we also know that this person is an empress.
Yeah.
I would not have known that empress signified a woman. Um, then there's the after that fall, it was the Common Era, uh, flooding of the city of Old Fair. Then Hale rises with the War of Embers, the Hale Civil War, and the Second Great War, which has now been rebranded as the Last Great War by the current premier.
By the way, I'm not a fan of the
Uh,
Hale and Civil War, almost certainly being a pastiche of the American Civil War. Since this is kind of based more off of the English society, it should actually be more based on the English Civil War, which was a actual war on the belief on who should actually represent the power on the Isles. Should it be the king? Should we continue back in the divine rule kind of concept, especially since he is wanting to spin backwards to Catholicism? Or should it be in the hands of Parliament? Should the king have his powers checked, and should it be the right type of Christian, i.e., not them papist dogs?
Following this
Actually, do they even
War of
explain what the Civil
Embers,
War is about? I'm curious. Let me look.
so they explain what the War of they do. So the War of Embers first is a religious conflict. It ends up creating a bunch of refugees that flock to New Fair. Uh, then there was challenged by the neighboring nation of Hale, leading to a insurrection and a civil war. Uh, then
They
the
benefited
Hailing
from the
government
diversity created by the refugees from all corners of the continent. This could also invite what's called massive instability. It really depends on how you handle the multiculturalism, because it worked well for Sweden because they basically played live and let live, only basic, and actually allowed you to publish in whatever language you fucking wanted. Might not necessarily work though if you're like doing it in the style of the Habsburg Empire. Although, to be fair, the Habsburg Empire did fine. It was until the Hungarians decided to try to go further.
um,
And due to
and so
Napoleon.
after this civil war, they stripped the presidency of much of its power, and then there was the last Great War,
So the Civil
which
War in this case is kind of a mix of the two, it sounds like.
yeah. Uh, then there's big war based on fighting between Hale and the country of Otherwhere. Brilliant name design.
These names suck ass.
The war ends up killing at least 750,000 Halen
No,
lives.
no, it's even
Uh,
stupider because the insurgency in the Civil War was by the president against his own government. This would be
is this
like
Confederate propaganda?
this would be like if Abraham Lincoln, no, like there wasn't a Civil War. Like Abraham Lincoln gets up there and in his inaugural speech he says, "I'm going to destroy the United States government." And that leads an armed insurrection against the government that just fucking elected him. Reminder, this is where they're supposedly specialists. This is supposed to be where they're actually good.
Um, what are these multiple cultures like? Who
Who
knows?
gives a shit? They're just diverse and that allows you to make everything look like the West, but like the West Coast, but thankfully in a way that's safe and you don't have to worry about offending anybody because it's all of the same bubble where you can just go to Starbucks and pretend everything's okay and that you're
But
not experiencing
I mean,
existential
it's not
dread.
outer it's not outerwear, it's otherwear.
Yeah, they're all the
Uh,
same. They just have slightly different skin colors because they're from different parts of the world. Don't worry, it's fine.
but
Everything's fine.
so um, Hale does end up surviving through a mixture of national pride, religious orthodoxy, and a first determination to reject tyranny. They then use some sort of electric weapon that killed, I guess, the otherwear forces and all of the people using that technology.
Oh
But that
yeah,
ended the war.
they used an electrical super nuke.
So I guess Oppenheimer in this case made an electric weapon.
Wait, what do you mean? Wait, what do you mean the cattle prod killed the cattle? Surprised Pikachu
Um,
face realizes he is monster.
so yeah, that's where we're at now.
That
We're
that's the
after a great
history.
war.
That's the history of the setting, and boy, is it such a very
Now, the government of Hale is interesting. You have a federation of 12 regions, so federal system, all right? However, mu they have a sophisticated telegraph system, so you're never meeting the bureaucrats in person. So great, impersonalized, uncaring bureaucracy.
The best part is you can
And
easily fabricate the telegraphs because it's rather easy to spoof middleman attacks because you can just cut through the wires,
and
or you can
it
just
has a
fabricate.
yeah, it has a five-branch system of government.
Oh,
Major powers.
no, no, it's like the concept. It's actually similar to Sun Yat Sen's take on government. He
So
wanted five
here's the
boards
branches. The president, which is elected by the assembly.
rather than the
Uh,
popular acclaim.
yeah. The assembly, which is composed of premiers and is overseen by the prime minister.
Still not elected
The
by the people.
judiciary. Well, I think they might explain later. But the judiciary, the ascendancy, which is the church, and the kicker is the armed forces. Congratulations, Hale, on your upcoming coup by your government or by your military.
Or the intentional paralysis of them doing anything because they'll just refuse to unless you give them more money. This is like the
Seriously,
Japanese government.
how the fuck do they have a military and political advisor on here and didn't say, by the way, your system is inevitably going to be destroyed because you do not have civilian oversight over the military?
Well, you see, what happened was this is actually his desire. He was always he could be one of those military types that always chafed at the bureaucrats and the corrupt politicians telling him what to do. He might have been one of
Oh,
those idiot
actually,
reformists. That's an entire possibility there.
oh no, it's even more fucked up. So the assembly made up of premiers. There are only 12 premiers, each of whom governs one of the 12 regions, and those are directly elected, which means your legislature is also your governor,
That's a lot of power invested in one person.
which means somehow both your although it's a federal system, but there doesn't seem to be any division of powers, and your your local executive branch is the legislative branch for the central government. This is fucking stupid.
There's a lot of power, and it's literally a one branch, 5 branches, yet all of them are invested in one branch, basically.
And I mean, they probably thought, well, there's only 2 terms for everyone, so that checks power. It's like, no, you've invested a shit ton of fucking authority. Especially also, who appoints or elects the armed forces? And the church.
Oh, it's even stupider than that because remember, this is the president originally had even more power. So what they're basically doing is they're creating essentially a warlord state system.
Oh no, here's the other thing. The head of uh, I guess the assembly is chosen by the president, the outgoing prime minister, the grand magistrate, the divine herald, and the armed forces chief of staff. So the party, or whatever it is, the legislature doesn't even appoint the person who controls the legislature. It's every other branch that appoints it.
And all of them are unaccountable to the citizenry.
Holy shit.
But you see, it's okay because we're progressive. Ignore our horrible nightmare state that makes the original
I
Turkish concept look good.
I think North Korea is a more effective system than this.
It is.
I mean, because it's just neo-feudalism.
But yeah, this is basically the army's role is similar to the Turkish army. Yeah. Oh, good. They have an entire section on language, even though it doesn't
It's
fucking
a
matter.
it's a fucking junta. It's a federated theocratic quasi-junta republic.
Reminder: this is supposed to be the big new thing, and no, no, it's pretty shitty.
Don't
I like how they have an entire 2 paragraphs dedicated to language, and none of it matters.
and then
Simpler names
technology,
ease
which is
translation in cities filled with speakers of diverse languages. What languages? What
well,
cultures? They're nothing because you're terrified of doing little interesting routines, rituals. Is there a culture that, for example, likes to work at night because in their original theology, the sun was seen as a hateful deity because in their original environment, maybe working out in the middle of the day was a death sentence because of dry heat, which is actually
hold on.
similar
Are
to.
you
Hmm?
are you stereotyping a real world culture here? Are you taking from a culture that's not your own?
How about a culture that specifically refuses to work on one night a week because that is when their god died and comes back? So that much like their god, they must be ritualistically dead upon that night.
That could be offensive, though. People who believe their god is not dead.
Okay, what about a culture that genuinely believes that you cannot kill any living creature, so they are only allowed to eat eggs that have been raised from animals that have not been with the opposite gender, and with plants that are budding, which means that you don't have to worry about killing them when you harvest them.
Are you a vegan? That could upset the vegans. I don't know. The safest bet is just transplant the aesthetics of any setting into San Francisco.
But without the homeless people that we kicked out so that we can look good in front of the Chinese president.
Um, Technology. Just move on. Uh, is steampunk. Just or
Steampunk,
gas
early
lamp, that
diesel
kind of
punk, who
shit.
gives a shit?
Their economy. Um, their bill is the equivalent to $1,
Okay.
and they have high agriculture. Oh, but don't worry about the class issue. There's a wide distribution of wealth in the Fairlands
Uh, alright.
and mobility. Transportation, steam power, and electricity.
I like
Bet
how
what
they
you
I
will.
like how they just bypassed the class system entirely because that could be offensive maybe to the poor people.
Um, Then the triumvirate. Here we go. The ascendancy. So
Yeah.
here's the religion of Hale. They believe in the triad of the father, mother, and child.
Can
Okay,
you
I'm gonna scroll back up to.
can you understand
Um,
why
I- I'm
I think they
I
would be homophobic?
I need to. I'm gonna read that phrase again, the sentence again here. There is no countrywide sense of bigotry.
Father, mother, and child. The literal religion alone. In ways stronger than Christianity itself in their effort to try to be more open with gender equality in this, because you have a male, female, and any option in between in the form of the child. They have accidentally advocated for a religion that would prosecute and fucking shame the hell out of people who only like those of their same gender.
Now they could have. They
Congratulations, you made a religion that intrinsically based on its traits alone would hate homosexuals and transsexuals more than any other fucking option. Woo!
They also believe in purity. So that
Which also means that it also shames and forces mothers to remarry or stay with abusive husbands. And
and
husbands who lose
they
their
believe in.
wives to find another one to stabilize the family, even though they're busy
They
contemplating ending the abyss, entering the abyss
hold on. They
themselves.
believe in penance and forgiveness, and the familial structure means that they highlight the importance of blood relatives over all other relationships.
Which is ripping off
Which
Yarnum
means
because of the blood. The blood isn't important.
no,
The blood is
no.
all.
Well, no, because in that case it was using, and to spoil, using the blood of a aborted fetus. Um,
I love it.
no,
They
this
created a
is.
religion that's even more restrictive than actual Christianity and even Islam itself. Fucking massive W. Titanic W. It's actually in some ways more
Oh,
hateful than Salafism. You know, the particularly fundamentalist form of Islam. Amazing. I'm
actually, no.
fucking
I do
applauding.
realize that because they could have written themselves out as saying to embody the aspects of the mother, the father, and the child in a familial structure. That way, then they could
They could have.
bypass
They could have.
gender restrictions. But I realize they said the importance of blood relatives. So fuck orphanages as well.
Yeah, orphans are seen with pity because they lacked the blood bond, the connection, the proper pure nuclear. Again, they screamed,
But they
"No,
operate an orphanage.
you can't operate in this world where there's big." And you make a religion that, by its structure alone, by its structure and scripture alone, even if you go with extremely activist and very liberal interpretations of their script, which likely led to a religious war, by the way. I wouldn't be very shocked if there is massive religious schisming during that period. At the end of the day, it would still try to force family measures. This is a titanic self-own. This is catastrophically stupid. And you have the audacity, the claim that there's not going to be bigotry in your setting when you make a religion like this. By the way, God fucking help them if they run into another faith that has a vastly different concept of this sort of thing. Like, for all you know, there could
Oh
be a
god.
culture that in that city that actually believes in communal upbringing and free love because their creator deities was actually just a bunch of their ancestors at once, which all tended to do free love sort of thing because of just how their culture was raised up.
Oh, I also realized this. They would consider polygamy and polyamory blasphemous.
Oh yeah, beyond blasphemous. Well, in the
Well,
other
actually, they
example,
might not consider polygamy. They might not consider polygamy depending on how they define the importance of needing one mother, one father.
how the fuck did you not just go with the classic triad of creator, destroyer, and changer and stabilizer? Um, well, you see, that would be
Because
intelligent, and we can't do that. And we also needed to make
and
sure
that could
that
also
one of the entities is a mommy
it could also then imply that
because
this
woman.
with that it would mean that we'd have to work on defining the face of the setting and the possible implications that these may be actually eldritch abominations, and will require us to actually develop more on our supernatural setting.
Seriously, you accidentally made a religion that actually is worse than even the most strict interpretations of Abrahamic faith. Holy shit.
And this is also because of the lack of what we actually really know. They only give it one page.
And they also emphasize
But this
purity
is
as a key value, which means actually any form of intoxication, perhaps, um, free association, maybe dating itself. You might actually have the scenario where just the concept of dating is seen as you dirtying yourself, and what happens is you're just
or
locked until you're married
no.
forcibly.
I can go even
There
worse.
is
I
no
can go even
ability
worse.
to avoid it.
The blood must be preserved throughout the generations.
Oh yeah, you can actually do the whole since blood's so important, it might actually,
Incest cult.
yeah.
Let's go inbred church.
I'm not even trying to be awful here. The problem is when it comes to theology, people take that shit seriously in your world. It's something you have to think
Yeah,
about when you're making a divine force. How would your average layman, and I mean like even decent people, if they're taught certain values, can do awful things because they think it is correct?
they also said that the World War had caused an increase in religious zeal.
So yeah, you would
So,
be experiencing essentially the rise of this religion's version of Wahhabism.
oh no, I'm imagining now, considering it's a post-war thing, it's a fucking.
At best, you're seeing phalangists, you're seeing national syndicalists coming into form, because you'd also experience probably labor unrest and former veterans just
And
struggling
must
to find
a,
anything to
dem-
do.
a demand to return to traditional forms of relationships to just increase
At
births.
best, you're getting an integralist Catholic social teaching form, which is a theocratic,
Oh,
anti-liberal government. At best.
holy
At
shit!
worst,
No. I know what the setting is then. It's just Brazil.
don't no,
It's
don't
and think,
don't.
no. The flag. Think about the flag as well. What are the colors of the flag?
Brazil doesn't have blue though. Only in their globe image, but that's not the initial one. They actually had the
It
crest of
counts.
the Braganza family.
It counts. It
Don't diss
counts.
Brazil in this. Brazil deserves better.
You're right, but I do realize now this is the perfect horror setting. Brazil.
I I'm not gonna lie. This is an interestingly both. It's a double edged sword. Like this is a surprisingly not clever. It is an interestingly flawed religion that could actually be quite interesting. Not necessarily
In
as
like again, in
as a
like a
direct
horror sense.
antagonist, but yeah.
Um, I guess the other antagonist setting, or somewhat, would be the regional government of the primacy. Uh, which, uh, yeah,
I
uh,
like how it's a bureau state,
it's
literally chamberlains, which are bureaucrats, do all of this decision making. The premier wields absolute
okay.
executive authority too.
It is I'm calling it. This is a fascist theocratic state.
Th-
There's
th-
no fucking way it's a democracy.
This is
There's n-
Salazar's This is Salazar's wet dream. This is Salazar's wet dream. This is French. This is Spain. This is the Spanish state under Franco.
Congratulations, Critical Role. You've made a setting that's unironically more fascistic than Warhammer 40K.
Also, congratulations, Critical Role, for supporting a game that actually makes the Cahokia look like a functional state, and I compared it to a mafia state, a cartel state. I compared Cahokia, which is an oligarchy, by the way, an oligarchical mob state with heavy criminal elements. You made that seem
So
more of an ideal society to live in than goddamn Hale.
we have Hale. We have the fascist
Fuck,
theocrats of
I'd
Hale.
rather
We
live in
have
Chalt because you have freedom to die
no,
however you please in Chalt.
We have the corp. We have the mafia state of Kokia. Don't forget, we have Highwire Islands corporate nightmare.
Yeah. You know things are bad when honestly
We've been.
Chalt's looking pretty good.
Eh.
You know things are
Apparently, there are
bad.
political party. There are political parties though in uh New
Paid
Fair.
opposite. Well, no, because this actually is something
No,
that Mencius Moldbug, because this is Neo Reaction incarnate. I love how this is literally Neo Reaction as an actual country. Um, he was
it's not.
inspired by
Sorry,
a former Trotskyist who came up with managerialism called James Burnham. He's also one of the founding lights of the American conservative movement. There's a reason a massive shitpost is a lot of neocons were actually former Trotskyists. I'm not fucking kidding you. It's a very weird pipeline. And one of the
but
concepts that Burnham came up with was the idea of a false democracy, where what the elites would basically create fake opposition to ameliorate the masses and make them think that they have an ability to change society. This is
the
beautifully
Dark
disgusting.
Dark Sun. The reason I'm not saying it's worse than 40K. I'm saying it's a more accurate depiction of fascism than 40K because it's a literal theocratic fascist state. The government is entirely run by uh by exec or by the branches. Everything is within the state. Nothing is without the state. Nothing is against the state. Um, it just much better than simply, you know, goose stepping imperialists.
while they were coming up with the neo reaction with the neo NRX neo reaction nightmare state. While they were doing that, they could have maybe used a page that they wasted on covering transportation to maybe explain why it's not a complete nightmare state. But yeah, there are two leading political
So
parties, and they're basically
the
the not
patriot,
Democrats and not Republicans.
but I'm going to be honest with with probably the best fascist sounding political party names.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Patriotic
the
League and
pa-
National Progress Party.
I think actually the National Progress Party is in what's that Hoi form mod, the one where the Nazis win? The TNO.
No, no, you're thinking of it's
I
called the National Renaissance Party.
I
But
don't know
yeah,
that mod's a mess.
unironically, this is feeling more and more like a nightmare totalitarian state.
So actually, hold on. The Patriotic League is this. They're a nationalist political party that emphasizes love of country above all else. They believe national interests should take priority over individuals by protecting the ruins of old fare. But they also believe in a strong government intervention in the economy. Uh, and the National Progress Party wants to promote individual freedoms uh, by a strong free market, limited government interference, but government funding of access to education and healthcare.
They're basically one of them is hardcore traditional conservative, the other is just your traditional classical liberal.
And then after that you have the periphery, the police state.
Also, why aren't there
Uh,
other smaller parties? Like, why isn't there an equivalent to like a labor movement party, which is just pro worker? Why isn't there the equivalent of like a
well,
weird, weird one issue parties?
no, you if you have problems with labor, you talk to your Halian labor representative, and any dissent is ruthlessly means you
Oh
get
my
the
god,
shit kicked out of
I,
you.
I like how the periphery legitimately has the same thunderbolt from the British Union of Fascists on its badge.
Holy shit! Oh no, here's the it's a violent militarized police force, which is a reality that many former soldiers who fought to protect civilians openly oppose. Officers in the periphery have been known to overzealously police citizens and use almost any excuse to arrest and lock them away in jail cells around the city.
Because we have to have include all cops are bastards. Oh god, I'm being robbed. Please, please help me from being violently assaulted for all of my stuff. Please, sobs. As soon as police leaves, fucking cops, they're all pigs.
They also have a gallows, run by a guy with the name the Executioner.
Of course.
Yeah, you just meet the Executioner at the office one day. Ask him how the wife and kids are doing.
You know what might have made more sense instead? If you're gonna do the all cops are bastards sort of setup with it, maybe make it so that what happened is in the aftermath of the war. Because remember, Hale almost lost. They had to use a super weapon and commit horrendous war crimes to survive. Why not have it be a case of like their economy's in the shit and they're getting heavily politicized, especially towards a more Mosley-esque, funny Austrian painter man, Benito Ravioli kind of aim, you know?
Yeah, that basically they're still in that mindset of security at all costs, which would
Especially
Candela
if you have
Obscura might
traumatized
benefit
veterans.
from,
Mhm.
because then they can conduct their activities under the cover of state security, which, if they did that, they'd be ripping off from Delta Green.
Oh, by the way, don't worry. The cops may be pigs, but they do tolerate your pronouns.
Yep. Um,
I'm
they
sorry. I'm
take
sorry.
time to they take time to basically say time works the same as in our world.
Okay. I don't
Um,
know why this is a point then. If they're like, well, usually it's assumed that it's going to be a 24-hour day.
they have work and play. They have
I'm curious.
holidays.
How do they come up with this? Within New Fair, laborers, factory employees, and electricians work up from sunup to sundown in the district of the Steel. Even though electricians probably wouldn't be in that area, but okay. Red Lamp District, which are legal brothels and gambling houses. Which, if they're legal brothels, would there really be a floating
Yes.
world?
Hold on one sec. You said brothel. I'm gonna come back up. I'm gonna start reading a sentence from the Ascendancy. The Ascendancy is a religion that highlights purity as a key value. There's a strong emphasis on penance and forgiveness, and the familial structure of their pantheon means that they highlight the importance of blood relatives over all other relationships. Remind me again, what is the Red Lamp District?
Legal brothels and gambling houses operate at all hours.
How the fuck does that make sense?
Well, you see, if this was a religion that wasn't oriented so hard around family, it'd be fine. Also, traditionally, prostitution was usually either legalized or was illegal, but no one gave a shit. Like as long as you weren't
That would,
blatantly committing prostitution, usually they wouldn't care, or they'd look the other way.
or you could add in a reference that the church doesn't like the fact that these are legal and actively engages in secret
But that's
purity
bigotry
searches.
against polyamorous natures.
Against
Blah.
humorists.
Another good
Sacred prostitutes.
another good episode title would be I have no family but must goon. Court
That's what the
appointed
bleed means.
prostitution. So yeah,
Uh, they
I also like
they
how
bring
they
up
don't actually mention any other massive industries. One of the biggest ones besides just metalworking. I mean, if this is very clearly an industrial town, but there's a variety of other ones that they could have easily have brought up. Fisheries, for example. Since it's on the coastline, I would have expected a large fishery and cannery to also have been a thing. Other massive
factories,
industries would be
whaling.
timber, lumber industry if it's near a large forest.
Weren't they near mountains?
That would mean that's what the steel works were for.
So okay, mining maybe.
Well, I mean, that's what the factory employees are for. That at least I would assume. I would hope. Prostitution is just
Simplify
Tradcath
prostitution.
roleplay. I'm just envisioning it's the wife simulator. Brothels all do wife simulators.
Let's see. They have a section on different holidays, in which they have a new fair world exhibition, which I'm guessing is yearly, even though they're trying to ape the World's Fair thing.
Yeah, which is supposed to
Also notice
be
how
a
none of
bid.
these No, they do have one religious one,
You know, for
but
an
the rest
area
are
that
secular.
emphasizes religion, they sure as shit don't have a lot of religious ceremonies.
There's a whole section about food and drink.
By the way, the Festival
Um,
of Illumination is not as cool as there's this great tradition where I believe it was British soldiers would send red poppies to the funerary. Like the whole thing is you would ritualistically give red poppies or plant them upon the graves of the veterans who either died during World War I or who died later.
which is again based on a poem of a guy who died in the war.
Which I think
I
is
believe he
much more poignant than just doing a lamplight visual, personally.
also bit of ironic, uh, considering some of them may have died by electricity.
Yeah, it's pretty. That would be
Uh,
quite offensive and triggering, wouldn't it?
well, then again,
Kind of
we
traumatic to envision. Like you see these light bulbs, and the last thing you smell, you can remember, you're just stuck envisioning the crackle of ozone as everything around you just smells like the internals of a barbecue.
well, then again, I do point out that the national holiday of America is lighting off big explosives,
Yeah.
and well, also with the veteran, with also emphasis on veterans.
Hey, Squirrel Killer figured out the writer's poorly disguised fetish. In this
Bad
episode,
lifestyle.
trad lifestyle.
Uh, oh, weather and climate. So the atmosphere is supposed to resemble the British
No, no, no,
Isles,
no. Come on, food
Pacific
and drink.
Northwest.
This is the only time we're gonna get
Huh.
cultural anything.
Oh, you're right. Farmer's Feast. A pilaf with meat, carrots, onions, and fluffy rice.
Pilaf, if you're wondering, is a
Um,
specific type of Asian dish. I forget if it's a type of dumpling or an internal roll. I don't remember.
um, they have a special drink that's a wheat-based beer that is, it's considered patriotic because it is locally sourced.
Okay,
Uh,
so
so
we know that the craft beer industry that hipsters fucking ruin all the time is in effect.
and smoking resin and snuff is considered illegal.
I like how smoking is illegal.
Well, smoking resin.
By the way, there is no actual cultural. Okay, I was
Oh
hoping
no,
for maybe
there is
some.
classes. There is classism. Though it has a generations-long religious and recreational significance, the triumvirate regulates Scarlet as a tool to debase and imprison the lower classes, painting them as immoral and hedonistic.
Every citizen has a different opinion on how to prepare his farmer's feast, leading to street violence on the regular.
Uh, yeah, so
Oh, it's like
congratulations.
chili.
There
It's like
is
Texan chili.
there is an ingrained sense of bigotry in this country.
Yeah, classism. They look down upon those who smoke,
Um, so the
which
atmosphere is
means
supposed to be
it is actually bigoted towards those who actually like to partake in drugs, which is a big no-no, by the way, since a lot of since it's rather progressive to give people the choice to indulge in vice. I love how this
uh,
is falling apart because they're trying to build a world setting, but they don't know fucking how.
um, let's see. Weather and climate. So it's supposed to resemble the British Isles, areas in the Pacific Northwest, and coastal regions of southern Chile. So I'm assuming rain. Lots of fucking rain.
Yeah, it's kind of miserable.
Uh, health and
Smoke
wellness.
crack to fight ghosts. That sounds like an amazing video game concept already.
Uh, just the edgy version of Popeye.
Yeah, health and wellness. Do they have the version? Do they just have a version of universal healthcare? I'm just kind of quickly looking.
They do say emergency service exists. Nothing about
Okay.
universal, but they do say medicine comes in a variety of forms.
Okay.
This next section, the death and mourning, this is the most unique. The modern funerary tradition involves arranging the dead with their hands cupped over their noses and mouth before burial, because it's called breath binding. because of an ancient Farron belief that the souls must remain in their bodies to find eternal rest.
Which is actually
Uh,
racist because it rips off the traditional Egyptian beliefs that the breath of life is, well, actually also Jewish beliefs because it is believed that life itself comes from breath.
yeah, but
You don't
can
understand.
we just
It's
bury him?
racist because you're still around. You have the right to legally be offended at this book now with the proper mental gymnastics.
Um, and so, well, actually, they might be, because ancient Farrens thought that one day the dead could awaken and live again so long as their souls were properly preserved within their remains.
Which
And
is also,
Judaism
funnily
has
enough, a belief that the Jehovah's Witnesses have.
Judaism has a concept of that when the Messiah comes, the dead will rise or return, or the dead will return,
It's
something
just
like that.
racist against the Jewish.
Anti-Semitic, then. But it fits the fascist label we're giving them. Um, I do like this though. To avoid the separation and with the belief that the human soul was linked to breath, they buried their dead with their mouths and noses covered or sealed shut. The average citizen would use ceremonial fabric tied around the lower half of the face. The poor, those caught unaware, or those at war would bury their dead with their hands covering their mouths, and the wealthy would use elaborate gold mats.
Only gold? Come on,
To,
man.
dishon- to dishonor an enemy, or punish criminals, or ensure someone would not rise, they would bury bodies with their mouths forced open, often utilizing a special contraption that held the jaw in place. Historians refer to this ritual as the rictus rite.
I love how this was an idea they clearly had for like world building, and you can tell this is one of the few they genuinely had.
That
Like there's
that is
actual
good
thought here. Maybe this was like a random idea that was done during playtesting by Critical Role, and that's why that's a thing. I get the
because
feeling
it
this is
gives us
like
a
a
bit of a
one-off,
yeah, it gives us a part of their culture. When they're describing the rictus rite, they don't tell us what the contraption looks like.
which is good.
Um, those um, those that follow the tradition of modern times will cover a deceased loved one's nose and mouth as soon as possible, even disrupting crime scenes or facing enemy fire if the situation demands. And there's also a tradition that involves pinning a person's spirit to the cemetery in which they're buried, under the belief that it would catch wandering souls that were not properly breath-bound, which I believe was actually referenced earlier when they were showing all those uh, tombstones.
They might have been.
They had pins on them.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, yeah, they go into this whole pin thing and sort of the relationship with spirits,
You
doing
know,
it for
this is kind
people
of
that had
neat.
died in war.
This is really neat. It just kind of makes me angry at the rest of the book I just fucking read though, because it shows that they can't actually give a shit if they tried.
Contraption is clearly pearl-shaped. Oh no.
Pear shape, pair of anguish. Anyway,
Oh, I was thinking more like it's almost like a saw contraption. It's like on the outside,
so there's a bunch of
keeping the
nuclear
mouth
districts.
open.
Again, I'm not a fan of how the map is configured. I really do think it should have been double paged,
Yeah.
especially since
This
this one's kind
section.
of small.
I tried reading through it and it is boring as shit.
Oh,
Uh,
let's just be quick. So there's Briar Green, which is the college district. It's filled with parks, blah blah blah. Apparently, it attracts young crowds to the area, which you'd think that would also be kind of restricted by classes because you don't want the homeless people to shit it up. This is the turn of the century, after all. And they did highlight classism as a thing because the rich look down upon those in the opium den. Why didn't the religion
you
have this
have
much detail? Because fuck you, Lamau, that's why. They also describe the college, which they barely mention anything. It's basically the rich people. It's like Eton or Cambridge,
and they give an example. They give an example assignment of a creature that's stalking the campus.
which who gives a shit? There's the Eves, which is another rich person's area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really boring
Groundswell.
because the locations that they give are also really boring. Like they
You
really
have the
don't do anything with
harbor.
them. Yep, the harbor.
There is the Red Lamp District,
There's
which
also a pawn
they
shop,
have
yeah.
they've legalized sex work, and they're afforded numerous rights and protections under the law. In a society with a religion that explicitly has at least familial structures, if not monogamy.
Yep. Also Nine Irons, which is the home base of the Periphery, which is the police. So Nine Irons is literally the Death Fortress prison. And there's also the gallows known as the Silent Mile, which is where they witness hangings. I like how they put like almost fetishistic interest in describing how they want the police to brutalize their characters. I think that's the other half of this episode's poorly disguised fetish, police brutality. Trad living and police brutality, a very interesting combination there. Red lamp, which yeah, that's the prostitute area. Also, that's very man. They just trace shit from Bloodborne. Look at that. That feels like one of the opening areas in Bloodborne, actually.
Maybe.
It's the visuals. There's something about it that makes me scream. This is Yarnum. This is like early part of the game Yarnum.
I mean, they keep saying Arm. I really do feel like this is more like Dishonored in some way.
I mean, they're stealing from that too. Shrivelvine, which is the home of the priests. Fetishes tend to be formed around taboos. Yep. So this is where the priests
Gothic.
are, and this looks actually like something that crawled out of Dark Souls' ass. This
Yep.
feels like an arena where you'd
Uh,
fight like a giant monster in one of the Dark Souls game. I think the first one in particular.
Church of the Holy Mother.
Okay.
Isn't that's the name of some Catholic thing, right?
It is.
Oh, uh, to regard here, the highlight the import. They
Also,
said
you are
during the
right.
time
I was
Ultra.
right. I was right. They are ripping from Bloodborne in terms of some of the little images they're using. Holy shit.
Um, yeah,
Their church
the Ascensi is
architecture leaves much to be inspired.
trying to mix this local faith with the churches. So they're implying that the mother goddess is the same as their mother.
So what you're saying is there's actually a traditional folk belief that existed prior that has not been mentioned until fucking now of all times that worship the
Hmm.
cult of the Empress. And this was
Also, the
not mentioned
catacombs.
at all whatsoever until just now.
The catacombs, so they're ripping off, well, the Roman or the Paris
God
ones,
damn it.
or that bone church, the one that's made out of bone.
Paris Ossuary, it's the Paris catacombs, yeah.
No, I think the bone church is that Hungarian?
Bone Church is Czech, actually. The Seidel, which is middle class, new electric lights. It's your standard middle class area. There's a boulevard that's not very important. There's a cable car line where you can, you're like 13 years old. You can legally drive it because there's no quality or standards for cable cars. There's the typewriter
Silver
shop,
stuff.
which doesn't do much, and then there's this is where they store all the crazies.
Oh, yeah, the sanitarium.
Yep.
Also, not only that, it's also where they keep the those magically insane.
Oh, by the way, this is the first area that, besides the red lamp in the harbor, that is actually reasonably lower class that they've described. Because then they go into another opulent because these are upper middle class idiots from the
And
West
it's
Coast.
a government building because look, it's got Roman architecture because that means
Neoclassicalism
government.
equals government, yeah. Neoclassical architecture equal government, but remember, don't be bigoted and only think about Western world when doing setting. Because God forbid that you use any of the Chinese palaces, like the Winter Palace that was burned down, as an example,
Also,
or
apparently, there are many tunnels in this district which are used for government officials to move between buildings during emergencies or political protests.
well, yeah, they
So,
don't want to have to deal with any. They don't have to want to deal with any citizen accountability, like because remember, this is a neo-reactionary movement, hyper-fascistic nightmare state.
how do they have political protests then?
Yeah,
I have a
actually,
feeling that
wouldn't
they
the
end
police
up.
just commit police brutality?
Maybe that's why they have to get the government officials out of the way so they don't get blood on their nice suits.
I like the idea that actually in the tunnels they have radios that they can listen to the police brutality, so they can twiddle their mustaches and pet their cats.
Oh, and they might actually have the Jews in this setting. They're the ones who built the tunnels.
There's also, oh hey, another lower class district for once. And yeah, they live in the ruins. They're sewer people. And this is actually based, oh god, they're just stealing from Final Fantasy VII. This is the slums underneath Midgar Plate. Are you fucking real? Are you actually fucking serious?
Actually, the other thing I realized, they have banned books. That also implies more. That implies just a lot more control
But
over government control over.
remember, you can't be bigoted, even as you use the police to commit horrible brutality for your horrible nightmare religion. And you steal from better sources like Final Fantasy VII for your South Soffit slums. They even have a pub, by the way, much akin to Seventh Heaven. Because, God forbid I come up with something creative. Let's just rip off something the Japanese made. I'm not gonna get sued. Who gives a shit?
So you have the Steam, which is the freight yard.
Which is actually based on the train station from Final Fantasy VII, which is right next to Sector 7. God
Oh,
damn, the
here's another
station
point.
even looks like it. Fuck.
Here's another point. The Halen Star is the only progressive paper with enough money and establishment support to compete with the Civil Tribune. Known for its wide array of international journalists, it's often at odds with the periphery. Its current managing editor is Zaire Adisia, they them, is a fast-moving, fast-talking, and wields a rapier wit. Mix Adisia has an in with the OUP, making the Hailstorm the most likely to report on magical phenomenon with any degree of truth, which means this is Progressive Inquirer.
I was gonna go with the Young Turks, so I'm assuming they're going to ignore the horrible pogroms that are happening.
Wouldn't it be called then the Young Ascendancy?
I don't know. All I do know is
Uh,
that it's kind of funny that they're trying to treat the turn of the century muckrakers, by the way, because journalists are even more inspired to lie. Because remember William
but
Randolph Hearst? The guy that inspired one of the greatest movies of all time called Citizen Kane? Remember that
oh no,
guy?
I was thinking. No, I was thinking of the time that America got into a war because a journalist lied about what was happening with a ship that blew up in Cuba.
Also, yeah, Cyanide gives a good point. There would not be a free journalist at all in this nightmare setting. There would be underground
Well, they have to have some.
fanzines. No, there would be underground
They have to have.
papers. It would be like, actually, where's the equivalent of like of the communist newspapers? Labor union syndicalist stuff.
Uh, they got absorbed by the fascists,
Fair enough.
or like many of them, they became the fascists.
I like how the steel just looks like nightmare futurist blend that doesn't even really look like anything from the 1900s.
It looks Art Deco, kind
Doesn't
of
even,
like.
no, it's not even Art Deco.
It looks like Bioshock almost in a way.
Well, remember, they stole from Bioshock.
Um, let's see. You have the depot, market,
So apparently, despite the fact that
obviously.
this is the industrial district, it's also another rich man's district.
No, it's got a market.
Oh no, during
I
the
don't know
day
if
it's
it's a.
heavily populated with blue collar workers. At night the streets that twist around the factories are deserted. Really?
No one's working the night shift.
There's no night shift. On top of that, there's no security to prevent industrial sabotage, theft. Because remember, this is right after a war. Well, the art direction's inconsistent. Actually, do you think it's possible they're also using generative AI and just kind of touching it up in a few spots?
Well, no, because this would have been released. They probably would have gotten this done mid 2023, and we didn't really see AI art kind
Like,
of
I'm not going to shit on
progress
them
until
for it,
the latter
but
half.
it's a little funny.
No, this does look a bit
It
drawn.
feels a bit
Also,
AI generated, though. Just doesn't feel right.
maybe I'm looking on the varnish. I'm trying to see if any of the words look
Well, they would touch them up. If you're
fucked up.
actually going to use AI art, anyone worth a shit would touch up stuff that's obvious. I'm
So,
being a little bit tinfoily here. I don't really give a shit. It's just the art styles vary so widely. It just kind of lowers the quality of the book a little bit. So this is the bustling downtown, and it's all very forgettable. I don't even remember any of
yep,
the points of interest, honestly.
the vanish. What was it called?
I don't remember any.
Well, now here's the ruins of Yarnum.
Yay! The blood is cursed.
The Atenathian, um, which is some sort of monument that was constructed to warn
The
people away.
Anatithani.
So some sort of bad way of saying the anathema,
Yeah?
right? Next up is dig site number 347,
I
in
mean,
which they found something.
I will say old Yarnum, I mean, old Fair is looking more interesting.
So dig site where they found the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh no, no,
Because
it's actually the Tablet of Creation. I'm just surprised Obo Sathla isn't burbling along with it.
actually they you say here's the features of the original dig team was uh, did not survive. Their bodies were found bound with a rope in a shape that suggests that there was a ritual performed. The bodies were exsanguinated, and each skeleton's jaw was snapped open while they were still alive. I believe that will be a call. That would be a callback to their whole soul thing.
Yep. And there's also a creepy stone that glows. Oh,
And
I
ancient
just
tablets
realized.
written,
Yeah, this is basically just SCP shit.
and the tablets on the Undying, uh, which were recovered in the initial dig site, depicting grotesque creatures in vivid detail. Which I'm sorry that Hebrew looks weird, but well, that's just what the language looks like.
Oh, by the way, the fun fact is they're just ripping off they're just ripping off skips now because the pulsing heart basically does the same thing as the bad music note. It compels you to mutilate yourself and kill yourself to an
Oh yeah.
endless purpose. The endless descent, which is an endless staircase, that's basically skip 87.
Oh my. Yeah. Holy fuck! They just did the endless staircase.
You know,
No explorers.
here's the thing. If Matt Mercer wrote this, he might have done the endless staircase, but he would have probably have done something different. He might have gone more recursive hallway, which is another skip where the concept is you enter a hallway, and if you enter the same doorway, you actually enter slightly different universes each time. And it compounds itself. Like the further down that hallway, the further trips you go, the weirder shit gets.
Are you thinking of that one or the one where they were able to go into a television show that was in another television show?
Well, I mean, just like the endless descent. Like, don't get me wrong, creepy endless staircase is cool and all. Oh my god, stop! I wasn't right clicking. Thank you. I mean that is one of the creepier ones, but it is currently mapped to 118 steps down. It even has its own version of Skip 87B in the form of a monster that can attack you. Are you fucking kidding me? Wow. Oh hey, the comment that didn't get through talked about the breaking jaws as religious damnation. Hell yeah. Dude,
Um,
you're like Mike keeps on occasionally blasting at max volume. I don't know why.
hold on.
Sorry about that. For some reason, Imsit's Mike occasionally his pop filter just says fuck it and doesn't even try.
Is this better?
Well, yeah, that's better. I'm sorry, man. It's just that can be quite jarring.
That's fine. I can't hear it, so I've got no idea.
Garden of the Gods. A garden conceived both horizontally and vertically with plants. Flowers blooms, no seasons. Vine clings where none should grow. Lack of sunlight doesn't seem to affect this area. They might
Another
contribute to modern
SCP.
medicine, but they're resistant to harvest. Those who have tried to secure cuttings have been killed. This is just another fucking skip. You know the problem is like they're talking about all these weird things in old Yarnum. I mean old fare. Isn't it kind of annoying that it's all nothing but high weirdness?
Yeah.
Like you need to intersperse your creepy shit with not creepy shit.
Like, the next is
Actually,
the
here's a
hollow
creepy
body.
one. You know what'd be a creepy supernatural encounter they could have thrown in the Steelworks? There could have been an entity known as the Green Man that haunts it. Why are they called the Green Man? It's actually based on a bit of an urban legend, a bit of a tragic case. There was an actual person who survived getting struck by lightning, or was it shocked from a high voltage power cell? And he was badly mutilated as a child because of that. The urban legend described him as a person who was mutilated by lightning and who glowed in the dark. You could actually take a myth like that and turn it into a supernatural encounter and intersperse your districts with them in a better way than just doing a shitty open adventure setup.
You know,
Like
with
what
that Green Man thing, I thought at first it was an environmental message, but
he was called the
now
Green
that
Man
actually,
because he allegedly glowed from the light from the electricity still coursing in him at night.
that's interesting. But the next up is the hollow bodies, otherwise known as the Ushabti from Warhammer,
Yep,
or any other ancient Egyptian statue.
gotta love the
Wait, this is supposed to be, it's supposed to be ancient Egypt, but also, and I think this is supposed to be, somehow it's they built on top of ancient Egypt. Yeah, it's just ancient Egypt. Uh,
and they can be animated with the right rituals. Yawn. The
yeah,
House
I
of Gold.
honestly, this is all just
Now your microphone's starting to cut for some reason. Could just be my connection, actually.
now we've got 16 people here. Is my mic sounding weird?
Yeah, just a little bit of an internal pull. Why is this all beneath the city, Squirrel Killer? Just because. You know, the best part is, you think that the House of Gold would have been stolen already? Like, they would have just peeled off all of the gold from the surface? Because if you think about it, that's like one of the things you always have to worry about in archaeological digs.
Let's see.
Hey, look, it's their attempt to do a script. Oh, good. I'm not crazy, Squirrel Killer. Yeah, he usually sounds fine. It's just every now and again his pop filter seems to have a malfunction.
I'll have to investigate that. Maybe it's the bleed.
Yeah, the bleed's just doing it. It's fine. Hey, look, this is Critical Role's understand. Not Critical Role. It's the author's understanding of the Hebrew language.
I guarantee they're definitely ripping off hieroglyphs here, but
No, they're not ripping off hieroglyph. They're actually ripping off. I forget what the actual language. It's the Proto-Coptic. It's the Coptic language with elements actually of Hobo script and Egyptian hieroglyphs, and a little bit of and a
I'm
little bit of hiragana.
it's supposed to be left to right or right to left.
Who knows? So anyway, that's all the weird, horrible gribblies, and then there's the House of Ayamine,
Which is where the Empress lived.
and she ruled for 5
Uh,
generations as the eternal mommy goddess.
there's also robot guards.
Yep.
The nascent springs, the bathhouse, um, the necropolis with a K.
I don't respect any religion that doesn't have a copy of their holy book written in hobo scribbles. Yeah, the necropolis kind of looks. Eh. I think I've seen this from somewhere. I've seen this visual somewhere, and it's just kind of not that impressive.
Oh wait, I now realize why they're using Elden Ring. The rip. Okay, so I don't know if this counts as spoiler or not, but Elden Ring deals with there had been ancient civilizations, oh, things over time building on top of each other. Oh god, they're definitely ripping that off here.
Oh wow, how uncreative.
Um, Especially with the ritual of the dead.
And the Guardian of the
Um,
Last Dream.
because the whole thing with Elden Ring is you get absorbed by the tree, the Erd tree. So basically, you get absorbed by the tree and then are reborn. So there's obviously a whole ritual of getting of that, and obviously for people that are punished, they don't get that. And technically also the immortal mommy.
Yeah, did the immortal mommy have milkers? No fucking clue. At some point, I'm going to
Uh,
have to ask gonna have to ask one of our art fans because we do have a person who does art as a fan. I'm
we'd
actually
we'd
curious in what
need
they'd cook up.
Egyptian uh, America with a little bit of some sort of eldritch taint.
Well, I was going to say if you made the unholy offspring of Nyarlathotep with Shub Niggurath, but in the form of internet perversion and waifuism, with and in the Egypto-Roman style, half Egyptian, half Roman.
Um, all right, let's see what else there.
Many religious texts debate whether mommy was flat or not. Ocean's End,
Uh,
which actually has oh, I've seen these before. Those are hedgehogs. Those are a type of anti-boarding, anti-naval landing device, usually used in war. Uh, Part of the Atlantic Wall defense. The original gate that controlled the flow of ships into and out of Oldfair, ancient architects sunk massive iron stakes into thick cement, leaving the sharpened ends just beneath the wave's surface. Um, Many of the stakes still somehow stand. My guess is magic's doing it. There's also a solarium, and then there's the old port, which I guess is a thing. Then there's the place of the Watcher, which is just more shit. Like they're trying to go creepy, weird, but it's not doing anything. Because this doesn't feel like an organized underground. You know what I mean?
yeah, this is
This is just
they're
salad. This is just
it's like they're
gobbledygook.
it's like they're adding the horror on right at the end.
Yeah, it's just kind of lame. Because this is the seat of the Empress, and briefly the Emperor, because, you know, Eternal Mommy Empress. Also, they try to, I believe, in her palace establish there's a bit of an oddity in how she seemed to have been immortal, but like we also know immortals are a thing, so who gives a shit? Literally who gives a shit? Uh, Papyrus uncovered in the palace library describes the steps an alchemist must take to awaken the eyes of the Watcher into a real thing. And the eyes weep tears of blood, granting the eastern wall its red hues. That just seems boring. These aren't
Oh,
particularly, you know. Oh, look, they're ripping off
yeah.
more Egypt. In this case, they're ripping off the Nabateans as well. Huzzah. How creative, thoughtful. Thanks, Critical Role, for helping fund this.
You have a valley where people that, I guess, old, fair people that are dead, but they don't believe they're dead, still continue on.
I guess this is getting. Oh my god, can this fucking shit end?
This is
Okay,
starting to feel like Hardwire Island.
thank God. Okay, so the last one's a ziggurat, which hey,
No,
remember?
there's more.
Oh no, hey, remember? Oh god, there is. But hey, remember when they said don't try to chain it to actual like cultures, and then they just ripped off the Near East and Egypt like fucking endlessly? As for there's the bleeding altar, which literally is something that crawled out of Chalt's asshole. And it has a basic bitch chimera on it, and it's mildly creepy, I guess. Ooh, bleh.
So you know what they have for the rest of the book? They have more locations, and
Yay.
then they're spending about 50 or so pages on how to play the game again. How to run the game as a GM.
Oh God. I'll just go really quick. I do like the art for the Bridleborn Mountains because it kind of reminds me of Appalachia coal country. Kind of has that coal country. Actually, it also has very similar like East Kentucky energy. Very good East Kentucky energy there. This is boring. Glassy is kind of boring. Uh, Bleh. Haven Hills. Yeah, this is also West Virginia coal country. Communities within this rocky land are famous for the freedom fighters that fought in the last Great War. So they actually had war fought on this land too. And they experienced the devastation of wars to this day, and apparently now they're just living in the fucking tunnels and military bases, which no? I would probably have gone with shanty towns, maybe. Or that they traditionally did live in there. Scarlet Wood, which is very much just ripping off the werewood trees. Like, these are just werewoods now that I'm looking at them. Or silver birches, because they're kind of creepy. Uh, Page filling nonsense garbage. Tim Burton Village. That's, I guess, slightly Innsmouth like. They're trying to go creepy, but like they're putting too much effort into it. With like the art, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
God, my brain is starting to hemorrhage. Giant sea beluga beluga monster. Hey, look, it's the dead body attached to a scarecrow like that one cult from Elden Ring. It's also in a crop field too.
What cult from Ring?
I don't remember, dude. I just remember like you find a dead body on a thing after they do a ritual or something.
No, that probably is the Godskins cult. A cult that skins gods.
Yeah, very godskin cult energy there.
You need to wear the skins.
Fair enough. The Verge, which is just a high cliff, blah blah blah. Westrek. I like how the Fairlands just looks like a complete and absolute shithole everywhere but the city. Don't you like that? Don't you like
Yeah.
how nothing,
So
the city looks nice, and then as soon as you leave it, everything is shit?
almost like how a fascist society would depict everything outside its borders.
Well, no, it's more like how a person who has only lived in San Francisco envisions living outside of a city.
They envision Montana as a bombed out hellhole.
Yes. Hey, look, it's a monster trying to sell her tea. It's an otherworldly monster trying to sell her tea.
A waiter on Thursday.
You're starting to cut in and out again. Oh boy, running the game. So this section is just who gives a shit. Spoil everything that's coming towards your players, giving them the ability to choose everything. So blah blah blah. Show them the danger, which means show them exactly what they're going to be fighting. Literally some of the worst advice I would ever give a fucking GM, honestly. Give them what's promised, though, is actually good advice. Well, yeah, the art looks wrong because it just feels like they spliced three different photos together and it makes no sense. I mean, there's some good, like, bits of advice. When you think off screen, you make a move behind a curtain that'll impact the narrative down the line, aka change the story when things change. Yeah. Monster Adam, that's just a foreigner, and they have the right to serve here. Is that? Yeah, they do. They do. I don't know why that lady's screaming. The monster just wants to sell tea.
I mean, he only had multiple eyes. Imagine if he was in a wheelchair.
Introduce consequences. I mean, there are at least some good statements that they're doing here. It's just like a lot of the concepts that they're trying to establish are wrong. Session zero. Oh yeah, fun fact. I have GM'd for quite a while. Uh, I can count on one hand with fingers remaining how often a session zero actually fucking happens. That's not to say they aren't useful, but here's my experience based on my specific group that I play with. They already have all the character ideas, so they just, assemble shit together, and then instantly there's no bloody point. Like, the only person who might benefit from a session zero is taught how to do it from other people. It's happened a bit more often as of late, but I literally maybe can count on two hands with four fingers remaining on the second hand. It's really close. Preparing for
Hey
play,
now.
blah blah blah.
Sorry. Hey now. I may allow foreigners to own a tea shop, but I draw the line at allowing rollies in my city.
Rollies in my city.
Good one, cyanide.
Creating a light keeper, so they've chosen to remain in the organization. What's this? These are like some terrible fucking character pre-gens that they make that has nothing really. Like, there's no stat sheets,
Feeling
there's no
out.
anything. Just fuck you.
This whole thing is, again, how to play this game in which you've already said it's a collaborative game that they already explained all this.
Yeah, there's no point.
Uh,
Also, countdown
they're
dice.
padding the last 50 pages.
Yep. What they could have done is actually expand on some of the regions outside of the city, or expand on the culture and the horror. And here's some example
Yeah,
shit. Again,
maybe give us some gear, maybe give us some artifacts, maybe give us some monsters and stat out what they would do.
and they give example sessions which aren't going to happen. These are supposed to be the equivalent of adventure hooks, but who gives a shit? They're not really.
Because here's the other thing I realized: the GM will never roll.
Yeah?
There's no rolls that the GM does. The players are the only ones rolling dice.
Yep. Because you're supposed to make up on the spot what they run into. Oh, by the way, at no point, even though you're running into horrifying entities that can kill you, no combat.
because they because you just need to roll and get one success and it's gone. Some you know
Also,
you
you
rolled
like
for
how
what is
all of
it?
the adventure hooks, all of the adventure modules they come up with, it's the same format. Hook, arrival, exploration, escalation, escalation, climax. It's the same fucking thing over and over again.
I can actually defeat the giant eldritch horror with a successful strike hit from my flaccid penis. It's
You could.
equipment.
You know, it's also
I'm
equally
carrying it.
valid. You can also send racial slurs at them until they die of depression. You could also, as the doctor that deals with men's aggressions and women's hysteria, do your job until the monster's cured.
Falls down. Uh,
The additional assignments are just like more shitty hooks that they're just assuming you're going to be able to make up on the spot, which you're fucked. Like let's be fair. You're probably fucked if you try to do this, because what's going to happen is you're going to get this game, and the people that would want to play this are going to be like, it'll be like Critical Role, and then the moment you're not exactly like Matt Mercer, they'd fucking throw a tantrum and leave. Even though you have no clue how to run a DM, how to run as a DM, how to do any of that, because this is literally your first goddamn time. But yeah, I mean, there are people that do have session zeros, but in my experience, I usually don't have to, like, they usually just don't happen. The only time it really does is essentially as where is it? It's essentially as what Cyanide said. Like, it usually only happens if it's a new system, or if you have a brand new player, and even then, that's about it. Here's some more NPCs that just make up on the spot, just to fulfill their diversity quota, just because they need it, I guess, for the money. I don't know. It doesn't matter. This is just a bunch of shit they slammed together at the end. Hey, look, here's the monsters you get the guys behind Critical Role, including Matt Mercer. Don't even bother to actually have them on consultation to actually make these monsters. This is Wizard of the Coast level of building. Hey, you take that back. They stole all of those perfectly good TSR settings.
Age of Sigmar first edition had more world building.
They did. Hey, look, there's some sort of crystalline golem robot, Voltron thing. Why is this here? Who the fuck knows? And who the fuck cares? Here's a bunch of organizations we couldn't be fucking bothered to describe for you. Like the Dry Herons, which are a bunch of smugglers. Or the Iron Nail, a crime syndicate. Or the New Century Dramatic Society, a bunch of theater kids. Fuck that. Oh, by the way, here's some additional inspiration for themes, names, look, blah, blah, blah. Who cares?
I love the fact the names are entirely different across different cultures.
Well, you
There's no
see,
set
it has
understanding
to.
of what this
You see, we're enlightened
identity
now.
is.
We're enlightened now, Imsit. We have to. The world is completely modern. It's current year. We have to reflect the world as it is today through the lens of San Francisco, and only San Francisco. Maybe Silicon Valley, maybe Portland, Ohio, maybe Portland, Oregon.
Well, I can't do Silicon Valley. That's where all the tech bros and chuds are.
Well, the problem is that they're all puppets of the tech bros at this point. They can seethe all they want, but those tech bros are the only reason they're able to make garbage that loses them millions of dollars now.
You're assuming this is going to lose them millions.
Oh no, it's gonna do well, but the problem is no one's gonna play it. No one's going to play this.
The only thing I can possibly see this, considering the improv focus, if you set this as an improv setting, you
No.
use this, you didn't use this as a game. You use this as a training tool for improv.
No, I disagree. So, Overall, that's Candela Obscura, and I'm just gonna rate it as it is. It's just barely playable. It is actually so close to me rating this garbage in the sense that I just don't find it fun to play. Because hypothetically, oh wait, no, I can't actually say I can play it because they don't have possession mechanics. They don't have comp. No, it's garbage. This is actually as functional and as finished as Racial Holy War. This is as functional and as finished as Racial Holy War.
So there's no fail state.
No, there
You
is a
get
fail state, but it's supposed to reward you with a bonus as you fail too. Also, there's no possibility for character death either.
yeah, that's what I meant as fail state. As in like you fail the mission, you fail the game, you have to change characters or Chronicles over. So Swoko is saying to buy a copy of this and run it to just prove Adam wrong.
Well, no, you have to do it as written in the book. There is no mechanic actually to describe possession, and there is no real mechanic to describe combat. I am correct in that the aspects after the investigation goes sour is not in the book. Oh, after four
Actually,
scars you die? That should have been maybe highlighted a bit better. Yeah,
well,
I
no, no,
missed
no.
that single line because it's
Remember,
written in one
we
column.
well, no. Remember, we can make up rules as much as we want. We can say no. It's you die whenever you have to play a game of rock paper scissors. Will that come up in the game? Maybe, but that's the rule.
No, no, I can't say I disagree. You're meant to say yes, and you're wrong. Um, I'm gonna say technically it's playable, but I think it's just it's
It's
so
playable
empty
enough,
and
but
boring.
yeah,
It's soulless. It the flashes of creativity are few and far between. And
it's like fast food.
no, fast food has
There's
more
a lot of
flavor, interest, and taste. This would be like if you decided to just straight up fry tofu in neutral oil, don't add any seasoning. Even then, tofu has a bit of a. This is like eating Nutriloaf. You know, you're in prison, you're eating Nutriloaf. This is Nutriloaf.
what really just ticked me off is just the banal world building because the horror was at the end, but at the beginning they're talking about all the
Horror?
bureaucracy.
No, no, it wasn't horror. It was just super powerful, advanced Cthulhu monstermen. Like that's not horror. That's just ooga booga booga. Oh no, I am scared and now dead.
It's just you should have added some of that horror in the beginning. Some of that frightening or some of that, you know, dark imagery. Weave it within the entire book.
You're missing. The
Instead,
biggest problems are the setting is too sterile. The setting you're taking. This is the aftermath of a war. This is the aftermath of a country that survived subjugation, destruction, mass death. This is the aftermath where they had to result in committing crimes against humanity itself to survive. This is during a period of religious revival. This is a period of time where, if this is similar to World War I, large numbers of people will assume that the rich sent the poor to die for their own ego. This should be a time of seething social unrest directed at the people that are currently in power. This should be in a state that is very much an authoritarian nightmare, a reactionary throwback to a previous age. It should be tense, and it should, on top of that, have that taste of the other underneath it. Underneath the cafe where bitter former veterans talk about what they're going to do to fucking Uncle Hale because they didn't give them their bonus and they're drinking away what's left of their fucking army pay to stop remembering what they did on the field. This is this is where you have nurses advocating for better conditions in mines because a child or a young adult was injured and basically has no pension pay. This is an era where you would have priests actively beating prostitutes because they are being unfaithful to their husband, their future husband, I should state, to make it worse. And that is just the realistic darkness of humanity. That is before you get into what lies beyond. That is before you get to the hidden world. That is before you get to what destroyed old fare. That is before the darkness from beyond. That is just humanity. And you don't get that. You don't get any of that. The closest you get is funerary rites, which is a flash of brilliance, an electrical light in a jar that the idiots then fucking unscrewed the cap on and just let it fly away, going, wait, no, come back.
Yeah. Uh, Cyanide makes a few good points. It's very safe. There's no edge, no bite. And that's correct. Because, yeah, Adams, you were just but the horrors of that time period. The eldritch stuff should be used to amplify darkness that's already there. Because at this point, they just have, well, there's a society, there's a city going on, there's a war, and then there's the supernatural stuff that's causing. The supernatural stuff is the only dark part. There really isn't anything dark with what's going on. We had to make up the idea that this is a theocratic fascist state.
And that's only just because of what they wrote and the natural evolution of how that would actually form. There is no, for example, the Scarlet Wood. It's very heavily hinted that it's affected by the bleed. There's no society, there's no moral degradation because of it's not the addiction itself, it's what you're smoking that's the issue. Like you see people piss away their money on drinking all the time, but when they start taking the snuff, when they start taking Scarlet, inhibitions, morality, doing good things, that's gone. Your soul is rotten from within and without if you imbibe long enough, because the bleed is eating at you. And on top of that, you gain dark powers from it. It's basically magical evil absinthe. That should be something that you could have played with, but they don't do that. And that would also explain why the wealthy want to keep it away from the poor. It gives them dark powers if you abuse it enough.
The
That's just
payoff
off the
of the
top of my
apocalypse.
head.
You're probably enjoying that.
The red lamp district, that's where the cult of the mother is at its strongest because it breaks them free from the traditional religion. It's a place where you can find single mothers or the hopeless getting a new perspective on life. Would be where you recruit your new age cult.
You have was that Society of the Exoteric? They're
They're an
essentially they're
insidious
working
force
with
in the steel. They're like electricity was just a
uh,
beta project of their final project.
human batteries, advanced war machines, stuff that was considered too immoral for the military, and they're selling the highest bidder. They don't care what happens as long as it can be tested. And then
But
you'd have
no.
Candela trying to set things right in a world that is going mad even without the monsters.
But that's not happening. None of that happened. We don't get any of that. You get safe, boring slop. You get arbitrary pronouns probably forced onto them by Evil Hat Productions because they want to look like they're doing performative work even though they're not. You get a minimalistic system that doesn't really allow you to really customize anything. You don't really have any interesting idea on what the setting even is. Fuck's sake, they couldn't even be arsed to describe different culinary traditions. You're on this coastline. Where is your fish soups? Where is your equivalent to jellied eels? Where's your equivalent to stargazy pie? Especially since this is kind of based on the United Kingdom a bit. Where would be your equivalent of the poor, of the plowman's lunch, the or the dishes of the extremely poor? Where is your equivalent of the onion burger, something created in the longest periods of time of darkness? In terms of financial insecurity. Where's your peanut butter cookies? Because, sugar might have gotten expensive, but peanut butter sure as hell didn't.
Didn't even get much on the other side of the war,
Yeah,
which could be a good point. Like with propaganda, like for goodness sakes, they call the enemy the otherwhere. I'm pretty sure that's not the name of the country.
well, all the names of
But
their country suck.
much like how England calls Germany Nemesis because it means like the silent ones because they couldn't understand the language. Like that's what you would need, but they're not delving into this. They're just giving us this weak basic structure of a setting
Hell,
that
the
it's
original
concrete.
term for Slavs comes from the root word for slave because they were seen as slaves of the Huns. They were seen as slaves of the Mongolic people, from what I understand. I could be wrong though. I'm probably wrong.
Yeah,
Because it also could
that's
mean for specifically it might mean for Slava, which is of people. Like I said, there's a variety of negative connotations that you can do just from the way you describe people though. Like I don't mean from slur, it's just like from origin history. Like the Slav thing I made up might have been made up and just propagated around as garbage.
yeah, but yeah,
I
this
mean, hell, during
uh,
times of war, we like renamed things. Sauerkraut was called freedom cabbage during the Great War. When the French refused to aid the U.S. in the War on Terror, there was a brief period where they kept trying to call French fries freedom fries.
get this done in this game. Just a just any of this world building, any of this detail. Instead, we get what's the word? Uh, sound and fury signifying nothing.
I think with that, it's a
Yeah,
good time to just end this.
yep, was our review of Candela Obscura.
Very bare minimum playable. I personally think it's garbage because it's not even a full game technically. They fucking
And
play
so
tested
next
it
week,
and didn't patch it.
and on that note, well, we have a Discord, and hope you guys all enjoyed. And next week will be something else.
Yep. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment or whatever. No clue what it'll be next week. Could be Iron Claw. Could be that weird Indiana Jones book. Could be anything. I have a lot of stuff. So see ya, and don't let the bleed
Yeah.
get ya.